Okay.
समीर लॉगिन कर लो ना उसमें वेबिनार बोलो मैं बोल रहा हूँ अंकित बोला
Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Falk Sänger, Managing Director of Messe München. Respected speakers, eminent guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Messe München and Messe München India, I welcome you all to the SmartCards Online Expo and the webinar session Digitize 4.0, NextGen, IoT and AI. The last decade has seen significant activities in the innovation landscape in India. With the launch of thousands of startups, investments worth billions of dollars, and favorable government policies, India is certainly emerging fast as a hub of new age innovation in the digital era. Technological innovations are changing every aspect of a consumer's life, and these innovations can offer solutions to some of the most pressing issues of the world. We, as a trade fair organizer, are very pleased to provide an opportunity to the Indian startups, small and medium enterprises, and even large organizations to present their innovations to the global market. I would like to thank NESCOM Center of Excellence for joining hands with us to organize today's webinar. I would like to thank all our speakers and delegates for joining us in this webinar. Before I request the moderator to commence the session, I would also like to encourage our delegates to visit the last day of SmartCards Online Expo, which is today. Thank you.
I'm really excited to learn that NextGen India is organizing the online version of the SmartCards Expo and IoT India Expo. So let's reconnect and re-engage in this upcoming online edition. So block your calendars and see you soon.
I'm really excited to learn that NextGen is organizing the online version of SmartCard Expo and IoT India Expo. So block the dates for 3rd, 4th, 5th of November 2020. Thank you.
We are excited to participate at the digital version of SmartCard Expo in 2020. Online version of SmartCard Expo will have no geographical barrier to connecting with each other. Thank you.
Let us reconnect and re-engage at the upcoming online edition. So block your dates for 3rd, 4th and 5th of November 2020. Thank you.
I'm glad to invite you all at this online expo, which is starting from 3rd to 5th of November 2020. Block your dates, please be there. Let's meet, let's collaborate. Thank you.
Let us reconnect and re-engage at this online edition. So block your date for 3rd, 4th and 5th of November 2020. See you there.
We're really excited to be a part of this virtual event this time. We really hope to see you at our virtual booth at the SmartCard Expo 2020. Looking forward to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you to Messe München. Good morning. Welcome to distinguished speakers and esteemed delegates to the NASSCOM Center of Excellence Digitize 4.0 IoT and AI conference. My name is Navratan Kataria and I'm going to be your host for the entire session. We shall today start with a story about a cook who used to be famous for two of his recipes called lentils and rice. Once he found that clubbing these two ingredients together gave better eating experience. We are talking about AI and IoT and the resultant recipe called khichdi. The spelling for khichdi, Khichdi, a dish India has given to the world. It's popular amongst workers in the manufacturing industries, patients, so it also is very popular in health industry and is a mass consumption food for the common good of the society. Khichdi is the theme of today. Digitize 4.0 Forum, initiated by the NASSCOM Center of Excellence in partnership with Messe München, is a platform for discussions, debates, roundtables, and showcases around digital transformation, leveraging IoT and AI. At our 4 centers across India, we accelerate adoption of IoT and AI, digitization, and digital transformation that have emerged as core drivers for Industry 4.0, health, robotics, and various other verticals. NASSCOM COE brings this IoT and AI Expo with Messe München. We welcome all our partner speakers and thank them for their continued support. We are privileged to have amongst us today 2 eminent speakers to open the session. Let me invite Srimati Meena Nagraj. She is an IAS officer of 2018 batch. Let me introduce her. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology, economics, sociology from Bangalore University and master's degree in psychology from Mysore University. As Director of Electronics, IT/BT and MD of CARES, she is spearheading the implementation of various schemes and programs of the department in the sector of IT/BT, electronics, animation and gaming and startups. And she brings Karnataka to the world well-known platform as one of the most sought after destination when it comes to innovation. Here to Mrs. Meena Nagraj.
Thank you, Mr. Navratan. Good morning to all the speakers and guests present here at the IoT and AI Virtual Expo. Innovation nowadays is the most popular topic of discussion among government, industry, students, all across the globe. As you all are aware, the world is now facing a great tide of change. The trend of digital transformation is drastically changing many aspects of society, including public administration, industrial structure, employment, and people's lives. AI and IoT in particular are said to have deep impact on the way we live and on the ways of working moving forward. Adoption of AI and IoT has spanned across industries, government, and in consumers' daily lives. We are increasingly observing how data generated by connected devices is helping business run more efficiently, gain insight into business processes, and make real time decisions. The number of IoT connections in India are expected to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 137% from 2016 to 2020. The sectors in India being impacted by IoT are utilities like water and electricity, manufacturing, transports and logistics, automotive industries, and healthcare. India has been ranked on the third spot after the USA and China in terms of artificial intelligence implementation, according to the BCG study, The Ghost in the Machine, Artificial Intelligence in the Factory of the Future. Analysts predict that AI can help add up to $957 billion to the Indian economy by 2035. The opportunity for AI in India is colossal, as is the scope for its implementation. By 2025, data and AI can add over $500 billion and almost 20 million jobs to the Indian economy. The key driving factors of AI and IoT growth in India are innovation in product offering, increasing potential efficiency, and improving customer experience. Karnataka is known for its technological capabilities and has been a pioneer in the country to embrace new and emerging tech. Our government has played an important role in encouraging research and development and creating vast talent pool of skilled workforce to catapult innovation. The government of Karnataka has been supporting startups through various initiatives. We have opened 125,000 square feet of incubation area. We annually host the flagship program of Idea to Proof of Concept granting fund called Elevate, and we have dispersed fund for over USD 15.3 million to 470 startups till date, and we encourage entrepreneurship at a very early stage through programs like the New Age Innovation Network. For AI and IoT in particular, the following initiatives have been put forward by the government. The government of Karnataka proposes to set up the Artificial Intelligence Research Translation Park in association with Indian Institute of Science. The state government aims to promote AI research, AI innovation, AI commercialization, pilot project implementation, along with development of 5G technology. The Vishweshwaraya Technology University of Karnataka is planning to introduce the Bachelor of Engineering in AI and Machine Learning with effect from the academic year 2021. The state government of Karnataka has always taken the first step in implementing pioneering policies and initiatives for the technology sector. We have been the first state in the country to launch sector-specific policies in information technology, biotechnology, startups, animation, and electronics. We have also created the Karnataka Innovation Authority to oversee regulation related to innovation and emerging technologies and to sanction regulatory sandboxes for testing their innovative technologies. Karnataka State has also set up a center of excellence in advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning, cybersecurity, agro-innovation as steps towards upgrading existing R&D and reskilling citizens. The Center of Excellence for Data Science and AI has been set up to catalyze innovation and accelerate the DS and AI ecosystems with innovators, user enterprises, and academia. The Center of Excellence also works towards the goal of social good through programs like AI for Good, by bringing the power of AI for public service and last mile delivery to drive sustainable development. 25 innovations have been successfully implemented under this initiative. The Center of Excellence for IoT in India, who is currently hosting this entire event, is a digital initiative that has been set up in partnership with Government of India and Government of Karnataka. The COE aims to jumpstart the IoT ecosystem in India and in Bengaluru by taking advantage of the country's IT strength and help India attain a leadership role in the convergent area of hardware and software. Government of Karnataka also proposes to set up a center of excellence in Internet of Ethical Things, which will have aspects of AI, IoT, and ethics to provide a platform for stakeholders to converge and create an ecosystem with ethics underpinning the discussion. Some AI and IoT startups supported by Government of Karnataka have gone into tremendously impact society and improve citizens' life. Mimic is building an intelligent surgical platform powered by AR, VR, robotics, and visual computing to reduce complications and improve safety in surgical and interventional procedures. We have also funded Cradlewise, a startup creating self-learning crib that can support babies' early wake-up signs. The role of innovation, science and technology is critical to finding solutions to a range of challenges, from climate change to energy efficiency, to unemployment, poverty, and food security. Innovation today is taking a multidisciplinary approach involving dynamic collaborations among different stakeholders. There's simply no time for complacency when it comes to matters of innovation, creating meaningful and being impactful. Before I conclude, I would like to invite all of you to attend the department's flagship program called Bengaluru Tech Summit, to be held in Bengaluru virtually from November 19th to 21st. The theme of this year's event is Next is Now, and I hope to see some discussion around how artificial intelligence and IoT can bring resilience in our economy and society. I encourage everyone to keep the conversation going, to reach across traditional boundaries, to support policies that drive innovation, benefiting both our communities and more broadly society at large. I wish the event a great success and look forward to such endeavors in the times to come. Thank you very much for providing this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Meena, for such insights about the programs that we are doing in Karnataka, and a great invitation for everyone to join the BTS, a very flagship program of Karnataka. Let me go to the next part of the opening session for Mr. Achim Burkhardt, the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany in Bangalore. I will introduce him. After 29 years in the German Foreign Office and serving a diplomatic tenure in strategic roles in various countries such as Germany, Egypt, Vietnam, France, and Zambia, he has now arrived in the Silicon Valley of India as the German Consul General for the states of Karnataka and Kerala. With more than 200 German companies and organizations in his constituencies, which include R&D centers, major, medium, and small-scale industries, language institutes as well, he is dedicated to promote and help these companies as well as all other German organizations. His passion for innovation has been driving us on a very high accelerated mode of Indo-German Innovation Cooperation. Over to you, Mr. Achim Burkhardt.
Dear NextGen team, government representatives, friends from industry, and dear interested audience. Thank you for inviting me to this interesting virtual summit of IoT and artificial intelligence organized by NextGen together with Messe München. My name is Achim Burkhardt. I am the new German Consul General in Bangalore, and my constituency are Karnataka and Kerala. Under my current role, I have met already various important government and industry leaders, visited facilities of many companies, major as well as MSMEs. One thing I've learned so far: India as a country and places like Bangalore have a remarkable potential for frugal innovation when it comes to latest technologies like IoT, Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. There is an enormous talent pool that is busy with innovative ideas for futuristic solutions. In the short time of my tenure, I have already become a big fan of the entrepreneurial skills of the young Indian women and men. I've also learned that an average young Indian loves two things. One is cricket, which I still struggle to understand, and then setting up their own startup, which, with the help of NASCOM people, I do understand much better than cricket. I hope I will be able to say much more about cricket, but I have understood the importance of startups in India. They are a very important driving force on the economic growth of India, especially in Bangalore. Joint initiatives like the GINZAP, the Indo-German Startup Exchange Program, Startup Asia Berlin, the German Accelerator, are actively supporting the Indo-German startup collaboration. Bangalore is known as the Silicon Valley of India, and rightly it is so. The startups here are much more mature and focused with the implementation of their business plans. New ideas, product services, and business models not only modernize the economic structure, but also create new jobs and provide much needed employment. Digitalization and digital transformation. These are the new buzzwords across the globe. India and Germany, with their latest innovations, have been setting the benchmarks and the pace for the world. In the current scenario, where virtual is the new norm, all our economies are more and more dependent on emerging technologies. The COVID pandemic shows this to us in a sort of magnifying glass. In addition to the major German companies like SAP, Bosch, Daimler, etc., the SMEs in the manufacturing sector are also looking closely at these technologies. They do this with a positive approach. They want to, and they are already adapting IoT and AI in their products. Apart from that, we all have seen what startups are capable of. The extensive usage of AI and IoT in healthcare and in the agricultural domain is already a game changer. India and Germany both have understood the importance of the new technologies and trends. However, as German Consul General, I have to give answers to a not finally solved question, which is how to bridge the still existing gap between the startups environments of our two countries. Both countries have their own strength. If Germany is initiator and thus leader in Industry 4.0 or artificial intelligence, India is also not less when it comes to IoT and AI research and development in these domains. We indeed know the strengths of each other. In fact, SAP and Bosch in India and Wipro and Infosys in Germany are the best testimonials for an already existing bridge between our two countries. The German consulate and I understand ourselves as the catalyst, and I believe that both of the countries need to continue to join forces to bring together the best of both worlds. We have to build more pillars, more lanes on this already existing bridge. We have to enhance and facilitate the traffic from both sides. We have to push away many roadblocks and to finish off with traffic jams, and very important, we have to demolish toll gates. This is partly, if not mainly, a work of governments. Germany and India are working closely together up to the highest ranks with regular common meetings of the cabinets of PM Modi and Chancellor Merkel. We, the governments, have to prepare a fruitful ground where our two business cosmoses can interact freely and show both their respective strengths. To support this process, we already had a high number of political as well as economic delegations, along with startup teams from Germany visiting Bangalore. NASCOM was and it will remain a very important partner for us. They supported us, for example, by hosting various important German delegations in the past. These consultations, fruitful as they were, will continue. virtually in these days and analog again after we have overcome COVID-19. Another excellent partner in the Indo-German Industrial Fairs and Exhibition. They helped intensively to increase the visibility and connectivity between the companies from both countries. So I understand today's event as another strong cornerstone for that bridge to be built. So speaking of events, the German consulate and the government of Karnataka are joining already hands for the Bangalore Tech Summit and many more initiatives that are comparable. The German consulate, along with the German industry leaders, are gearing up for the Global Innovation Session for Bangalore Tech Summit on the 20th of November from 12 to 1 p.m. I would encourage you to follow the session to know more about the views of German industries in the field of e-mobility. In the double sense of the word, e-mobility, a motor for innovation. So, business is about people. Science is all about people. Innovation is also about people. We have to further smoothen the exchange of people. Only by interaction the companies will be successful. Therefore, under a flexibility program of my government on high-skilled personnel, my consulate together with our colleagues in the embassy in New Delhi and the consulates in Kolkata, Chennai and Mumbai have already issued nearly 80,000 business visas and nearly 8,000 work visas in 2019. With around 25,000 Indian students in Germany in 2019, we have recorded an all-time high. That all shows the tremendous amount of knowledge and business exchange happening between our two countries. Under the current situation, we are on the way to come on track for issuing visa for work permits, students and important visits to Germany. And the good news is also Lufthansa is flying again. Although there are still restrictions in place, we know that. And for the time being, virtual, as I said already, is a new norm. I want to ensure you that this will not hold us to achieve our aims. As a Consul General, I would be glad to promote existing cooperation between the startups in Germany as well as in India, and I will further try to strengthen these ties between our two beloved countries. So, thank you to the teams of NASCOM and Center of Excellence and Messe München for organizing this virtual summit. I am sure it will be a fruitful session for all the participants and viewers. So, let me finish. All the best to you all. Thank you for listening and watching. And one thing, please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Consul General. I thought I should also do the presentation of the theme that we have. And what we have, and as I mentioned, is the khichdi. I'm sorry, it's got stuck, but all right. So this is what used to be cook, which is, if I can say, one of the AI. AI started in 1955 or 56. And then lentils was another dish. And what our cooks and a lot of our master chefs who will come on the speaker panels have done is khichdi, a combination of the two best resources of food on earth. And not only that, it's one of the national and the most popular dish in the country. Let me go back and unshare. I'm sorry, I can't unshare. Sharon, can you unshare me?
Navratan, so you'll find a button saying stop share. I don't know.
No, the screen is frozen, so I'll have to try something else. But if we can start with introduction, okay. Let me see if I can. I would like to introduce our next session, Mr. Shri Krishnan V, and he will be holding the keynote address of the presentation of the theme. Can you share Shri Krishnan's PPT, or am I stuck?
Let me try, I think.
All right, I think now you should be able to. Let me give a brief note about the keynote. So as I mentioned, khichdi is the South Indian cuisine, which brings a lot of friends on this conference today. Today, whether you love it or hate it, you cannot live without it. They are inseparable, like a lentil and rice in a khichdi. I would like to invite Mr. Sri Krishnan, Senior VP Robert Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions, to deliver the keynote on IoT and AI, the next revolution. Mr. Sri Krishnan, a seasoned professional in the aerospace and automotive sectors, started his career at ISRO in the Satellite Center, working on satellite telemetry and payload data handling systems of Indian Remote Sensing Satellites program. At Bosch, currently he has the business unit of innovation and incubation and is responsible for incubating digital technologies and emerging business domains. Very surprisingly, healthcare and smart agriculture are also some of the new business areas in the incubation area. On the technology side, AI, distributed ledger are some of the new technologies being developed at Bosch. Over to you, Mr. Sri Krishnan.
Thank you, Navratan. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good morning, friends from the digital community. I'm really excited to be here with you, sharing some thoughts about the two mega trend technologies and business impacts that AI and IoT can create. First of all, my thanks to NASCOM, CVE on IoT AI for giving me this opportunity. And let me present some thoughts about how these two technologies are converging and creating a huge business impact. Before that, let me start with a quick intro to Bosch. Most of you know what is Bosch, but I want to paint a slightly different picture. You know, Bosch is the largest automotive tier 1 company. There is no car virtually in the world, I can say, without a Bosch component. And probably being from the India Center, one of the largest engineering centers, I can say probably there is no car in the world without a software element coming out of India. But today, let me start with beyond automotive and cars. What is Bosch doing? This will give a totally different perspective. You see various pictures here. All these fields, Bosch is quite active. The security system at the Machu Picchu is coming from Bosch. Or the audio system in Bolshoi Theatre, one of the finest ones, is coming from Bosch. The London Gate opens with Bosch technology and motors. I can go on and on. I would just like to end with one more thing. Whatever maybe your smartphone you are having, there is high chance that the sensors inside, the accelerometer and gyro sensors, are from Bosch. So that is the spread of Bosch, and what we have achieved starting 140 years before, approximately, with an automotive to a completely, totally different what we are transforming, is the storyline what I want to elaborate. And again, it is powered by the new age technologies, digital technologies. Very quick facts and figures that we are close to 80 billion euro company with 400,000 associates worldwide. And we continue investing in spite of whatever downturns and cycles are happening, almost 8% R&D, one of the most innovative companies, including the new age technologies, not only in the automotive. Let's come to the AI and IoT. These are not new technologies. These have been in existence. At least AI has been there for decades by whatever name it was called, but now it is AI, machine learning. IoT has been there for a decade or so. Each one has been maturing, has been growing in its own stride. But we are at an interesting point where the intersection is going to happen. Mainly due to the reasons that lot of enabling factors are now really converging. There is abundance of memory availability. There is abundance of data availability. We are able to store it. There is enough computing power now at affordable rates coming. So we are able to process the data. High-speed computing is possible at the edge, fog, everywhere. So that gives us opportunity to do real-time computations. And overall, actually, a lot more new businesses are into the digital transformation, transforming their entire business using the digital technologies. So that brings us to the quite interesting point in time, the next revolution, what we are seeing. When these two mega technology trends, mega business trends converge together, we see a very interesting possibility to potential to disrupt any vertical, acting as an horizontal enabler. Classically, we see now in any business, the company or the business might have been there for decades or century, but new players, startups, enter into the arena and they are able to disrupt. That is mainly due to the power of the digital technologies, which are flattening the old technology, which are flattening the old knowledge built, but able to create new value. Bosch has been reinventing. So we have been into this game of digital as well. Our principle is actually what we call sensor, software, and services, because we are strong in all these areas, starting with fundamental sensors, that's the backbone of the IoT systems, to the software, which includes the AI that powers, and innovative business models that are possible through services. I think that is where the world is heading. And what I would like to present now is some interesting use cases, which we are already in various stages of development, various stages of already deployed, to show the spectra of possibilities using the power of IoT and AI. I will come to the automotive towards the end. All of you know about automotive, but I want to give a spectrum from other direction. This is a recent product from Bosch, launched in the need of the hour. Particular features have been added. And again, Bosch and healthcare, for some of you may not ring anything, but this is exactly what is happening. It's a completely new field for us, but we are making waves. We have launched a device that can do a quick PCR test. Now it is doing in less than about 40 minutes. And this has been launched successfully, and we are overbooked and not able to service the market requirement. That's the current situation. And it's a complete digital product with artificial intelligence. Just take a sample and put it in a cartridge, scan the cartridge and put it into the device, and you will get. And this is again a connected device. Multiple devices can be cascaded. A country level statistics can be derived, insights can be derived. This is another example how a technology of AI and connectivity IoT comes together to create a value. That to a value, because we say in Bosch is invented for life. And this is exactly what we are doing to save lives and help humanity. Another interesting product from Bosch, again, healthcare I am taking. This product is coming out of India, our Center Robot Bosch Engineering. It's a quite interesting product. One of the bigger problems in emerging countries is accessibility to the laboratories and the technicians, pathologists who are able to analyze the things in the laboratories. We have come out with a product, a digital pathology product, where you can insert a slide normally made like in any other laboratory. And in about 15 minutes, it can analyze 30 different conditions and give a report. Again, completely powered by AI. It is an IoT device connected, get software updates, can transfer the data to the backend, do in the device itself, edge computing. Many features are there. We won CES Innovation Award and Product Design Awards. Again, we are proud this coming out of India. Example of another great product where the two technologies of IoT and AI come together. Let me move on to the other things where we need to save the environment, where we need to turn more green. This is a device from Bosch, another IoT device powered by AI. It's an air pollution monitoring. Already it is getting deployed in Europe in many cities. And it captures all the essential pollutants in the air. It can measure the particulate matter, nitrogen, sulfur, humidity, including sound pollution, what is happening. We are able to generate for a city maps of pollution, even able to make models not only just capturing in real time. Using the power of AI, we are able to make models. And then if the city wants to improve the pollution, how to then guide the people. This can be combined with the navigation system, interestingly, to give you pollution-less routes. Those possibilities are there. And again, a big change that these two technologies can bring together. Coming to the consumer side, what things are possible? This is a Bosch smart glass, which we had showcased in CES last year, this year. Interesting product. Multiple applications are there. I have just shown. It's a connected product, again powered by AI. On the right side, you will see maybe a bike rider is wearing that, and he can get a navigation instructions without distracting. He need not look at any dial or any other system. It can give him the turning instructions, what distance, where, what, even a mini map, or what is the time to. All that can be shown on the glass without any distraction. On the left side, you will see this is useful in the retail as well. One of the applications that you can wear this and go around into a store, and then if you have a shopping list connected, it can keep giving you instructions. This is available where you can keep checking out, you can keep buying things. There are quite interesting, innovative possibilities with the smart glasses. We started the discussion with khichdi. And this is one example possible. Even anybody can make a good khichdi possibly. You know, the Bosch brand is into the home appliances as well. And this is one of the products launched. Is a connected multifunctional kitchen machine with built-in AI and connectivity that can give you step-by-step instructions to cook as well as measuring things. It's not just what you see on a tab or mobile phone, the recipe. It is much more. It's an interactive one. It will guide you, it will measure things, and can do almost 30 different operations. And again, the interesting point is it is connected, and it can give you many more interesting possibilities with technology helping your cooking. Moving on to security, one of the most needed again in the current hour. This is an example how the Bosch security cameras are helping. It is just not monitoring and then giving the feed to the security officers. It has got a lot more built-in intelligence now. Some of the examples shown here, it can actually track an unattended baggage. It can track, if required, a particular person, of course, complying to the GDPR and privacy guidelines. If there are incidents, maybe somebody had a fall, it can detect, or even people crowding, or if it is seen as some violent scene, it can detect that. Or if people are moving in the airport to the areas which are banned or trying to enter, it can alert. There are enough use cases available, again, using the power of artificial intelligence, real-time computing, and computer vision. Now I will come to the classical areas where we have been the leaders for decades. This is a well-known topic of Industry 4.0, where manufacturing is digitized, modernized, where all machines are connected. Everything is transparent, including machine maintenance, including logistics. Real-time data is available, real-time machines are working together, robots are working together with humans, and a complete automation in this kind of scenario is a possibility that is already coming into reality, again powered by machines getting connected as IoT, and with the data, AI playing a major role. Interesting example, in Bosch manufacturing plants, we are deploying already, we are seeing quite a good power efficiency improvement. Easily 10% savings are possible. We are seeing that. That's a great advantage considering the green initiatives that we have got, and we are already carbon neutral. So that is possible, again, using the power of AI, how to optimize energy consumption at a machine level. We get insights and we are able to tune the entire manufacturing system. Coming to the last, the automotive side, I think all of us are familiar with the various levels of automation from level 1 to level 5. It is all in many stages of deployment. Level 5 is slightly ahead for, but there are many features which are useful. It could be for the highway piloting or emergency braking or little more safety. All these things are possible again only with the power of computer vision, artificial intelligence, and connectivity between the infrastructure and the vehicle that gives enormous possibilities. The underlying technology finally is this is how a computer or the camera will see a road scenario. This is called semantic segmentation. The intelligence that a vehicle requires to understand a scenario, that this is a side path, this is a two-wheeler, this is a four-wheeler, there's a signal ahead, there is a road ahead. All these things computers in the car have to interpret in real time and then take decisions so that safety is ensured for the passenger as well as for the other people on the road. So this is another great application right now unfolding in front of us, how IoT and AI can create value. It's not just only autonomous driving. There are many steps, as I was telling. For example, interior monitoring system inside a car, again, are getting more prominent. Till the fully automated system comes, till the driver is there taking charge. To know the driver is alert so that accidents can be avoided, called driver drowsiness system. More things are there, monitoring the vital signs of the driver. Again, contactless, using cameras and other sensors, heart rate, breathing rate, and if the driver needs a brake, using the steering angle and using the AI algorithms, we are able to give such safety instructions. As well as inside a car, when multiple passengers are there, whether they are wearing the seat belt, whether they are sitting in the right position, particularly with respect to airbags, that children should not be there, those kind of things. As well as if there is a scenario that warrants emergency conditions, alert can be given. So these are all, again, another set of applications of artificial intelligence, computer vision, and connected systems inside a car. And coming to the ultimate possibility, again, what we call car as a personalized assistance, that it can help you to plan your day. Suppose you have an electric vehicle and you want to go for shopping, you want to go for lunch or dinner, the entire day can be programmed synchronizing with your calendar, when to charge, based on your preferences, which restaurant to go, and you don't forget your shopping list, all such things. We are calling the car as a third living space. The first living space is your home, second one is your working place, and the third living space is the car. So how can the third living space become much more intelligent with power of AI and connected systems is another thing unfolding. So these are all the possibilities that is in front of us when the two technologies, the superpowers, I will call them, AI and IoT, come together, and let us ride the next wave. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Sri Krishnan. We heard about the next revolution in khichdi preparation from Bosch. Now let's talk about speed. We moved from open pan cooking in previous years to pressure cooker cooking. You guessed it right. The next topic is innovation in India with 5G. Our next speaker is a very sought after chef who is showing us the fifth generation of speed in IoT and AI through mobile technology. Mr. Sudipto Roy is VP of Engineering at Qualcomm Technology Licensing, or QTL, at San Diego, and he focuses on QTL's regional strategy and ecosystem development. Sudipto has been with Qualcomm for over 26 years in various pioneering and strategic role models across engineering, product management, and customer engagement, spanning infrastructure, handsets, obviously, and IoT devices from 2G through to 5G. I invite Mr. Sudipto Roy to do his presentation, please.
Namaskar. My name is Sudipta Roy, and I am a Vice President of Engineering with the Technology Patent Licensing Group at Qualcomm's headquarters in San Diego, California. I'm looking forward to giving you an update on the global progress on 5G, and then specifically commenting on areas of innovation in India that can be further augmented with incorporation of 5G. But first, allow me to give you a few words on Qualcomm's history. As you may know, Qualcomm was once a startup founded by university professors with the mission to conduct research and development into wireless systems that lead to quality communications, and hence the name Qualcomm, Quality Communications. We are well known in the industry for two of our main businesses. One that licenses the standardized technology that arises from long-term R&D programs, and another one that provides advanced semiconductors and software for the cellular industry and numerous other industries. Qualcomm's operating mode, however, has stayed the same throughout its lifespan of 3.5 decades, that of focusing on long-term R&D, finding clever ways to use the scarce resource that we call as wireless spectrum, and then thinking of the design of end-to-end wireless systems, then building industry consensus through standardization, such that various industry collaborators come together and agree on a common way of implementing an air interface, then working globally with operators, with governments, infrastructure and device manufacturers, OS providers, app developers, and the broader industry, including startups. Ultimately, through these mechanisms, our goal is to provide technologies that transform how the world connects, computes, and communicates. Now turning to 5G, understanding the true impact of the current and future of 5G requires a few words on the standardization efforts that have brought us here. We have been driving R&D into the technologies that eventually got adopted into 5G standards for a long time, well over the past decade. From that foundation, we commercialized enhanced mobile broadband, EMBB, in smartphones and fixed wireless access devices that were launched since earlier in 2019. We are now seeing an expansion of 5G EMBB solutions to new device classes, to more deployments for expanded 5G coverage. These include bringing 5G to connected PCs and also the automotive industry. The next phase is about delivering the broader vision of 5G and expanding to new verticals with new capabilities, such as bringing ultra-reliable and low latency communications to industrial IoT to control machines and robots to increase the flexibility of the factory of the future. We will see new types of deployments with private networks for dedicated tasks and more spectrum options. We will expand direct communication with 5G NR, CV2X, cellular vehicle to everything, to enable more advanced use cases, not only for the autonomous car, but also for expansion of the infrastructure and smart transportation, where we will bring all of these benefits to roadside units that are directly communicating with cars. We will continue to enhance broadband through new device classes, enabling dramatically different and new experiences, such as boundless extended reality. The first of these new capabilities, known as Release 16, just got standardized earlier in 2020, with devices anticipated in late 2021. The subsequent release will be known as, unsurprisingly, Release 17, which will likely get standardized in 2022, with first devices in late 2023. But today's deployment occurs with Release 15, which was standardized in 2017. Let's take a look at what has been deployed thus far. It would be an understatement to say that 5G acceleration is at a torrid pace. Since the last 18 months, when the first of the 5G networks are commercialized, we now find that 90 plus operators have launched 5G in more than 40 countries. Deployments continue despite the extraordinary pandemic times. Devices have launched well ahead of networks. Qualcomm projects that a net of 200 million devices 5G capable would have shipped by the end of this year, 750 million by 2022, and shipments will reach the 1 billion mark by 2023, which is 2 years faster than the equivalent time period of 4G's rollout. These projections trend out to nearly 3 billion by 2025. And also in that year, it is estimated that 45% of all mobile traffic will be carried over 5G. This brings us to a discussion on. It is worth noting that more than 100 entities have licensed 5G standardized technologies from Qualcomm. Several of them have also used our advanced semiconductors and software, resulting in more than 300 different devices. The diversity of devices are exciting. While they are predominantly cell phones at all price points, including those that have already pierced the $200 price mark, numerous 5G connected laptops, hotspots, CPEs, embedded modules have also been launched. 5G cell phones are more immersive, and actually they save on battery power by completing their downloads much quicker than on a 4G device. 5G connected laptops do not require the intervention of maintaining a Wi-Fi network and feeding broadband to that Wi-Fi network. 5G CPEs instantly bring fiber-like speeds to homes, offices, schools, and hospitals. 5G connected vehicles enable continuous vehicle diagnostics, facilitate software upgrades for performance and safety improvements. The innovation around 5G is remarkably much more intensive than the equivalent period in 4G. Many of these devices are also launching in India. In recent months, India has seen the launch of more than a dozen 5G ready handsets already. In fact, all new phones from every major phone brand are 5G by default, especially in premium, high, or mid tiers. Meanwhile, Qualcomm is continuing its R&D to build 5G low-cost devices and bring the price points rapidly down device tiers. Innovation is also occurring on the network side and also on the operator side that will make 5G more accessible and affordable. With 5G's massive data capabilities, operators are able to monetize their investments more rapidly and offer unlimited data plans with more flexibility. They are also able to explore new service capabilities and host new business models using 5G's virtualized RAN and advanced wireless edge computing capabilities, opening up new data streams beyond subscriber connections. Now, turning to our focus on innovation in India, we have enabled multiple programs through our Qualcomm Design in India program, QDIP. It has evolved over the last 5 years to include universities, startups, licensees, and other downstream players. In particular, for this presentation, I will highlight the Qualcomm Design in India Challenge, which is India's longest running hardware startup incubation program. And we use product design services, technology incubation services, IPR workshops, and business mentoring to incubate some of the best hardware startups in India. Taking a look at where these startups have come thus far, we have been privileged to have incubated 65 of India's top startups who have been selected from hundreds of applicants. Our startups have 3 distinct traits. First, they know how to build hardware as part of end-to-end systems. Second, they utilize AI as a primary means to improve customization and performance and also provide ongoing service upgrades. Third, they protect their hard-earned inventions through patenting. In fact, on the third prong, our incubator startups have filed or have received grants for over 100 patents, mostly in the IoT area, and about 2/3 of these patents have been filed in India. They have also been successful in capital raises, and several of them have had successful exits also. Some of them have launched products and services in the market, with 6 of them, I'm proud to report, having adapted their products and services for the COVID-19 use cases. A note on how we work with startups to help them innovate in their own domain. What we realized with startups is that we need to hide the complexity of chipset and software so that they can focus on what they're good at. To facilitate this, we have developed 6 platforms ranging from LPWA to 5G NR that we mount on complete kits and provide sample software so that startups can rapidly build their prototypes on it. We call it a 2-2-2 model. 2 days of onboarding, 2 weeks of early prototype, and 2 months of complete prototype development. We provide dedicated engineering support for these selected startups, and we also open up our 5G test labs in the Qualcomm Innovation Lab in Bengaluru, where not only they can test 4G, 5G, RF, imaging, AI, but also if need be, they can do pre-certification for India's regulatory test framework. In this next slide, allow me to use examples from 3 of the 65 startup alumni we have had the privilege to work with as a way to illustrate how an advanced use case already utilizing 4G technologies can be enhanced by going to 5G. The first example is that of a startup who used advanced imaging and on-device AI using a 4G cellularly connected drone for pipeline and industrial column defect detection, particularly for refining and petrochemicals industries. Moving to 5G, the same drones could be retrofitted with more advanced and parallel imaging, that is multiple cameras, for deeper or more rapid inspections, saving time, money, and increasing accuracy. Another example is that of patient vitals monitoring. Today's state-of-the-art allows for dozens of hospital beds to be monitored using this startup's under-mattress sensors and AI-based diagnostics. Imagine the impact of an entire hospital with hundreds of beds or a hospital campus system with thousands of beds monitored, with data cataloged, analyzed very securely, and rapidly reacted to. Such a network will depend on 5G's massive network capacity and low latency combined with reliability. A third example of innovation dramatically speeds up the diagnosis of diabetic retinopathy, which afflicts a third of diabetic patients. If left untreated, DR can progress into blindness. Through contactless screening enabled by Edge AI on a Qualcomm Snapdragon device, and obviously 4G connectivity, this startup's product enables touch-free fundus eye exams in less than 3 minutes and offers a unique point-of-care solution for screening and referring only those suspected of diabetic retinopathy to specialists. Contrast this with incurring days of delays due to shortage of access to specialists. Now, expand this capability combined with remote surgery. You could easily envisage a situation where you have remote eye surgery with a specialist on one end of the network and a team of surgeons with a robotic eye surgery machine on the other end adjacent to the patient, where the communication with the specialist is happening over a low latency and reliable 5G network. There are many examples. We talk with our startups of how to expand their previously developed 4G based capabilities and functions into 5G, and we look forward to working very closely with our alumni as well as the startups we are going to incubate next year for developing further 5G based applications. While I gave you scant 3 examples, if you trend them out, it actually turns out that by one study that we commissioned, 5G could have a global economic impact of $13.2 trillion by 2035. These would be in significant areas of importance to a rapidly developing nation like India, in smart cities, in smart manufacturing, richer mobile experiences, precision agriculture, education, healthcare, and so on and so forth. Just as in 4G, navigation apps or e-commerce or ride-hailing services were built on 4G smartphones, 5G will provide a tremendous platform not only for the smartphone-based economy, but for multiple industries. India has shown a massive appetite in adopting, adapting, and consuming digital services. In fact, we're in the middle of incubating 12 more of India's finest startups, and early next year, we will announce who among the 12 are the winners in the areas of agritech, medtech, robotics, and many other interesting areas. Please stay tuned. Combined with India's traditional strengths in software and increasing prowess in both hardware design and manufacturing, the arrival of 5G couldn't have been timed better. This is the innovation age that we envision, and we look forward to partnering with Indian startups, manufacturers, operators, and indeed the government of India to realize own 5G-based economy. On that note, thank you very much for listening. Dhanyavad and Jai Hind. Namaste.
Thank you, Mr. Sudipto, for your wonderful insights and also for your encouragement and support to the startup ecosystem. Friends, khichdi, we come back to that, when made on wood-fired vessel, like it was done in the olden days, inviting friends over a fireside gave us different flavors and we could all taste it together. I take this opportunity to invite Amit Chatterjee from Intel to initiate the fireside chat on the adoption and challenges of the IoT and AI with fellow industry colleagues. I will also request him to introduce after I introduce him. Amit Chatterjee leads the industrial segment marketing for the APAGA with Intel IoT Group. As part of this role, his focus is in driving product scaling, lifecycle management, and go to the market. Industrial IoT solutions like supply chain, manufacturing, energy, and utilities. Amit is part of the embedded industry for almost 20 years, with experience in product marketing, business development, design and development of embedded systems and IoT products. He has extensively worked in various IoT systems and supported IoT developments while being part of multiple product teams. Prior to joining Intel, he worked as a technical leader at Texas Instruments, where he managed a team working on industrial products. Amit completed his master's in automation and computer vision from IIT Kharagpur in Jan 2000. The fire is lit, Mr. Amit, and your panel is ready. Please introduce your panel as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Navratan, and good morning, everyone. I hope that we will have a more engaging discussion. We have three industry stalwarts joining us today in the fire chat. First one in any order, so it's not specific. So first, I would like to introduce you with Mr. Ashish Kushu, CTO at L&T Technologies. He has more than 30 years of experience and is responsible for company's technology roadmap for high growth initiatives. Then the second person that I have is Kedar Ulman, Chief Supply Chain Officer at Diageo India. Now, I have asked Kedar for samples, but I have never got any. So let's he has 25 years of experience and is responsible for managing one of the complex consumer goods supply chain, and which is expand across 48 manufacturing locations, right? So supplying of the type of solutions or Kedar, the expertise is really valuable. Then finally, we have Sunil. Sunil heads automotive business development at Mitsubishi Electric India. We all know Mitsubishi. He has more than 30 years of experience and is responsible for various automotive solutions or automation solutions, and is also the chairman of CC Link Partners Association. And then finally, me, what Navratan has already introduced. So what we want to do is keep it as an engaging discussion. We would love to have feedback from the team. We would love to understand and give you a perspective of what are the challenges that we are trying to solve together. And Mr. Sri Krishna has actually given a very good overview of all the new things that are happening and the Qualcomm team gave a very big picture of what new stuff that are being worked out, right? So keeping that in mind, we are all talking about Industry 4.0, right? That's I would say, the new buzzword. IoT, I normally like to call IoT as intelligence of things. IoT has been around for a long time. But to be very frank, I feel that only now is the time when people have started driving intelligence of from the data that which is coming in, right? So keeping that in mind, a lot of organizations, we have a very good, healthy set of SMEs joining in today. Thank you so much. We have startup ecosystem coming in today, And then we have the developer ecosystem coming in today, right? So what we had tried to do is keep those interactions in that particular segment, which is relevant to you. So first one, let me start with a question, which is Industry 4.0 is a big pill to swallow. It has a lot of functions, right? It is a big challenge if you want to take it down. Now, what we would like to do is go on a gradual manner and maybe simplify the adoption of IoT or Industry 4.0 for that matter, right? So, for example, in case of Intel, which I represent, we have been dividing it down into smaller pieces and doing it like the way our previous speakers have said, that you want to do it something on healthcare or maybe a small function of healthcare, let's say patient data recording, or even for that matter, smart building automation. All of those are smaller subset functions. You can start with them and then bring out specific solutions in that particular area. And that can be one way to go. Mr. Ashish, you want to add something on that?
Thanks, Amit, and please call me Ashish. The moment you say Mr., I seem to be in a different age group altogether. Thank you, Amit, and it's been nice so far listening to speakers who've spoken in the earlier sessions. The interesting part, Amit, is that yes, IoT has been around for a very, very long time. And when you are talking of a certain subject, there's so much focus sometimes on one aspect of the subject because it seems so exciting that we seem to miss the woods for the trees. And I think that's exactly is the experience that we've had. When we look at what the gentleman from Qualcomm presented, he said the 5G impact would be humongous in precision agriculture and manufacturing and oil and mining and the very sectors that we go and talk, and that's the very sector which is getting disrupted by digital disruption or Industry 4.0, whatever you may want to call it. So our experience has been very interesting. One is that they are supposed to be the old industry. They're very open to startups. They're very open to adopting new technologies. We don't see an issue there with them. The issue has been that the journey gets overtly focused on either cloud or on IoT software. And if you really look at it from a customer's perspective, both of them are really not solving a great part of the problem. The great part of the problem is, where are you going to get data from? What are you going to connect? How are you going to connect? And once you get the software, once you get the data, what are you going to do with it? And these two endpoints never get discussed with the customer. So therefore, when you go with point approach of I have an IoT software or I can do this AI enabled things, we're missing the complete perspective of the customer. For example, if you're going to do smart agriculture, how are you going to sensorize, and what would happen to sensorization in remote fields where there is no network available? Or when we were trying to talk about connecting an asset of an exploration giant, how do you connect all these assets and rigs which are in high seas, and then how do you establish a network and how do you get a data? Or when you're talking of an adventure sport vehicle, it's easy to talk of a vehicle getting connected which is on the road in Bangalore anywhere. But what happens to an ATV which is a snowmobile going in remote areas? So I think what's happened here is, in our view, is that one needs to look at these technologies in a slightly more holistic manner and empathize with the customer's product goal, and then see what we want to do. And I feel that this was the missing part for a very long period of time. But in the last few quarters or last few months, we have started seeing both the customer as well as people talking. Don't tell me about the IoT software. Tell me, how are you going to help me capture my data? And then once you get the data, what are you going to do with it? Talk of the whole landscape. I think that was a missing link. And we feel that that's coming back in a big way, and that's pushing the agenda for IIoT adoption in the industries that we are talking of. That's been my experience, Amit, and that's, I think, the right way to go for.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashish. Now, definitely the holistic picture is the way to go, no doubt about it. And I would like to then ask Kedar about what is it that he's thinking about in terms of this holistic picture for his supply chain.
All right, thank you, Amit. First of all, I must confess that I feel like a velociraptor lost in the modern world. Okay, velociraptor is a very efficient dinosaur, but dinosaur nonetheless. So, listening to all the speakers since morning has been quite enlightening. But I must feel that particularly the sector from which I come from, beverage alcohol sector, has just started dabbling with IoT and AI, particularly in the supply chain field, and to some extent in our commercial field as well. But as we see, we see numerous applications of AI in particular, right, in the supply chain field, not only for beverage alcohol, but in a larger consumer goods industry as well. I'll give you a couple of examples which are very, very applicable and very valuable for us. The first example is from the demand supply planning phase, right? So, it's a very, very difficult task in a highly regulated beverage alcohol sector to predict demand and ensure that the supply chain is geared to meeting this demand. What we observed in past was our sales folks, commercial folks as we call them, had this habit of under forecasting the demand and then creating a bit of a noise, when at the last moment when the supplies ran out. We used a very, very simple AI model to kind of predict to the extent to which they were under forecasting the demand, and that kind of helped us in building those safety stocks, so that when the demand came in at a last moment, we were able to fulfill it. It took us about couple of years to figure this out and build this model. We took ventures in getting that done, but once we did that, ready for any kind of swing that happened, right? So I think this was very useful, and we will want to embed more of AI into our supply chain planning as we go ahead. Couple of other examples. One is brand protection. In the beverage alcohol industry, where excise duties and the custom duties are so high, these industries are very prone to counterfeiting, because the spread of the price at which the product sells without excise duties is pretty high, right? So you see a lot of counterfeiting being done, not only in India but all across the world. We are using a combination of technology and, to a certain extent, smart tags to put in place a track and trace mechanism, which will help us identify whether the product is authentic right at the point of sale, right? It's a bit confidential, and we are working with a couple of startups to make this happen. But if you are able to do that, then, as a consumer, all you need is a smartphone and point at the product, and you'll know whether the product is authentic or not. This will be revolutionary for beverage alcohol sector, right? And which will completely stop usage of or pilferage of counterfeiting in this segment. Not only help companies like us, but will also help the government in sizably increasing their excise revenue. And most importantly, it will help the consumer in ensuring that whatever they consume is authentic. Last space is in the sustainability. I can't share much detail about it, but we are absolutely passionate about sustainability, right? And particularly in the field of plastics, right? We are a reasonable consumer of plastics. We have ensured that all the plastics that we use are recyclable, and we don't have any non-recyclable plastic in the supply chain. But we are committed to collecting all the recyclable plastic as well from the industry, right? So let's say if we sell about 25 metric tons of plastics to our consumers, we have started a program to collect it all back and get it recycled at our own expense. And we are working with some technology startups to figure out the best way of doing it, so that we don't leave anything in the supply, in the environment and pollute the environment, right? This is just the beginning, I must say. And if you are able to take AI, IoT even further, even in our plants, there are so many things that we can do. I can go on and on, honestly, we just see even the tip of the iceberg. If we are able to partner with some of the startups and take it even deeper, it will significantly help consumer goods industry, particularly in supply chain. and it will also get some startups, do something for which they will be remembered for many years to come, right? That's my bit. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kedar. In fact, you have made, I'm pretty sure, a lot of startups day, for example, because they would be looking for opportunities and you've already given them some. And actually, for that matter, having business development team under committing and over delivering is, I would say, a misnomer. So moving on to our next speaker, so Sunil, automation is the way to go. We all understand that, right? So maybe your thought on how these can be simplified for adopting Industry 4.0.
Yeah, Amit, I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, I will bring a Japanese perspective to all this discussion because we talk about Industry 4.0. That's a terminology which, by and large, came from Germany, right? Mitsubishi Electric, we introduced e-factory as a concept, which is way back in year 2003, and we implemented e-factory in many of our manufacturing plants in Japan. We manufacture factory automation products, motors, air conditions, switch gears, and all these things. And basically, what we intend to do that we integrate supply chain, development, production, everything is visible. If I see the factories in Nagoya, at the reception, everything is visible. What is happening on what machine, whether the machine is stopped at what reason, how much power it is consuming. So that is, we called it as an e-factory. Basically, it's again Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing and integration of the equipment or sensor to the ERP level in real time. So that's a basic concept of e-factory, or whatever I will say, Industry 4.0, or today whatever we're talking about, IIoT or IoT. There are many things in India we are doing in automotive industry as well as in pharmaceutical, F&B, water, where we are talking about integration. And when we say integration, if we talk about the existing plants in farm or as well as in automotive, two-wheeler or four-wheeler, the basic challenge is that there are legacy equipments. There are many equipments which are working for more than 15, 20 years, but they are producing. So we don't want to get away out of these machines. How do we really generate the data or get the data from those equipments? Or there are many CNC machines of different makes on the shop floor, in the machine shop. So what we do is that we adopt some small controllers on those equipments, and then we fetch the data. Even for injection molding machines, we have a lot many companies where we have integrated all the injection machine moldings at a different level at different plants, and the data is made available at a proper appropriate level. So that's the way e-factory is. So my point is that all the solutions are scalable. We can keep on adding as and when required. So we can focus on, say, assembly shop, we can focus on paint, weld, and then we can move ahead, we can integrate utility. So all these things are possible to integrate step-by-step manner. And the basic point is that, yeah, first of all, we need to pinpoint what exactly we are looking from the adoption of this new technology. What is my key pain areas and what exactly I want to do with that. So that's the way we need to take the further stage. And people typically talk about ROI nowadays, because whenever they are going to do any investment in any technology, people talk about ROI because the top management has to look into it. And today we are moving out of pandemic situation, and now we are moving ahead with the economy, and production is picking up. If you see the news, two-wheeler, four-wheeler, last October sales is quite good. So that's a quite good thing, and it is going to improve the manufacturing scenario. So this is all required, and e-factory is the concept which is implemented. And again, we work with startups. So in India, I think more than 25 alliance partners we have developed in last 1.5 years. Some of them are from IT, some of them are from sensor, and some of them are system integrators who work associated with us to deploy these solutions at the factory level, at the plant level. That's my takeaway. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sunil. In fact, I had a privilege to visit your Nagoya factory a couple of years back.
Is it?
It's really, really good. So,
see, Intel, Malaysia, so it is e-factory. So there we manufacture your microcontrollers for laptops. So there we have implemented e-factory a couple of years ago.
Correct. The automation is there, so specifically in the packaging part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes, definitely. Different industries require different types of automation, no doubt about it. There is no one single solution that caters to it. And like what you just said, go in an incremental manner definitely makes sense. Yes. Having said that, backbone is data at the end of the day, right? Everything is data driven. All your decisions have to be data driven. Now, I would like to say that our ex-CEO, Brian Krzanich, said it first, that data is the new oil. But I'm pretty sure we all understand the new companies who are utilizing data really well: Apple, Facebook, Google, you name them. Anybody who is dealing with data is valued, really valued, right? So keeping that in mind, what are the things that you are taking care of when you are taking care of, let's say, data per se, right? How are you handling data? How are you ensuring that those are some things that you should be considering about? So Ashish, you want to take a shot at it?
First of all, I think very happy to listen to what Mr. Sunil and Kedar said, and both of them are sort of in line with how I would like to address the question. For example, Kedar talked about supply chain, insights from sales getting into supply chain, and Mr. Mehta also talked of how in that e-factory supply chain data is getting integrated with data on the machine floor, on the manufacturing floor, and etc. etc. I think this is what is happening. We are seeing the product design part, the manufacturing part, the supply chain part, the legacy equipment on the plant, in various departments, weld, assembly, etc., etc. All of them getting incrementally sensorized and connected and coming together. And that's the experience that we see many customers are talking of. So, customer behavior while buying a product, and which geography is he buying it, at what price he's pointing in, not only goes as an input to the manufacturing folks, it is also going as an input now in some customers to the people designing the product, doing the product engineering. Customer satisfaction, adoption, how does it get linked to the defects in the product performance, etc., etc. So that's the type of integration that we are looking at, and things are moving very fast there. And when we see, I'm talking from a services and a technology perspective. Mr. Mehra and Kedar are the consumers, so they'll probably understand this a little bit more in detail. There is a challenge right now in Industry 4.0 because there are still systems that are legacy systems. What we forget is that when you use a compressor, or when you're using a carbonate mixer, or when you're using a grinder, or any industrial automation product, they don't last for 6 months like a cell phone or for 1 year. Some of them last for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So now at any moment in time, I'm sure Mr. Mehta would agree that he has perhaps 8, 9 different generations of technologies lying, and they're working. They're working well. So you have proprietary protocols, you have new age protocols, you have old gen machines, there are new gen machines. So, so it's a fairly complex thing that cannot be addressed overnight. And some of these issues have got nothing to do with technology any longer, as Mr. Mehta talked of. Incrementally, they're all getting sensitized. I think where we are still struggling when we talk to our customers, and again, Mr. Mehta and Kedar would possibly, is how do you create a more harmonized linkages between these data? That's really the issue. When you take sensor data of a certain kind, now sensor, when we talk of a sensor, right? I mean, it's not uniform. There are perhaps more than 70, 80 different type of sensors, and they deteriorate over time in the performance characteristics, etc., etc. Now, what type of sensor data? How do you take that data? How do you synchronize that data? How do you take data from SCADA, PLM systems? So now I think we are in a situation that we have access to all different type of data, harmonization of this data into something that you can make sense of, connect, is a very, very big challenge. What to do with this data, I think, is known to Mr. Sunil and Kedar very well. But how do you synchronize? How do you harmonize? And one last point I wanted to tell you, Amit, is that when you take a predictive maintenance of one or two equipments, old OEMs, now the new OEMs would have predictive maintenance solutions built in. And when you're doing real-time assessment of the performance of these machines, it's a big data problem. I've really not heard many people going to manufacturing organizations and telling them that if I am going to implement predictive maintenance solutions on your or existing or old legacy products and sensorize capture data, it's actually a big data problem when you see the type of volume of data and the type of data it generates and different type of data. So I think uh, given the context of whatever we have discussed, incremental implementations are happening. We have access to data, but the complexity of the different type of data, how to harmonize it, it's happening. But one humongous data lake in an organization which takes design to product design to CAD to engineering to manufacturing to supply chain to the customer. I think that's on the drawing map of everybody, and I don't think anybody has an answer. The issue is not technology. The issue is processes. Issue is mapping to the information flow, relevance of data, etc., etc. So that's the journey that we are in right now when we talk.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ashish. See, if I want to think about it, there are basically 3 steps, right? Sense, think, and act, right? That's the whole idea. Yeah. Whether you are playing even a game, human being will do that. If you're playing cards, for example, Teen Patti, I'm pretty sure very soon, I'm sure a lot of people will try it in Diwali. So having said that, so I would like to go to Sunil and ask, see, we are running a little short in time, so I would like to be a little more specific on that particular part. So Sunil, you are both a manufacturing organization as well as an automation provider, right?
Yes.
So how easy or difficult it is for us to, for example, let's say a startup organization or anything, to get data itself, right? The right data itself, and start working on top of it, like what Ashish said, that ensuring they work, they are easy to get, because without data you really not making any big progress, right? So if you can highlight something on that.
I think this is a quite valid point. Whether in machine shop or NC machine or different controllers, injection molding machine, different controllers, we have experience that we can adopt a small box, a controller box, which is not very expensive, and it can cater to 5-10 machines in that area, and then it further communicates on the network, industrial Ethernet network, to the further devices on various protocols. So that is quite possible and that is feasible. In fact, last 2 years we have done many of the jobs like this, where we have collected the data. One point is that the machine generates a lot of data. When you, in the morning shift, when anybody operator starts at say 6:45 or 7 o'clock the machine, it starts generating the data for whether it is in auto mode, manual, semi-auto mode, how much energy it has consumed, how much NO components or NC components it has been produced. So all that data is available within that controller. So we need to fetch out that data, and then there are different protocols come into picture. So now today, with the technology moving in, and industrial Ethernet is becoming more and more popular on the shop floor, and the technology what we're talking about is the TSN. So that is also where other companies like Profi and other things will also come into picture, and we will have a complete data available on the same cable, Cat6 cable. Today what is happening is that we have got different protocols and different controllers. So that's also creating a lot of confusions, how to take a data and how to bring it at a one level. And another technology what Mitsubishi is bringing in is that is the edge computing. So in fact, many people are talking about edge computing. So do we really need to take all the data to the server, whether it is really required or not? So when you have a 10 CNC machines on a machine on the shop floor with the same controller or different controller, if I have an edge computing device, so we take the data of 10 machines, we filter it out there itself, and the relevant data is fed back to the shop floor. Hey, out of this 10 machine, ninth machine is not performing, the efficiencies are not good. So fed back that data to the shop floor again and filter out the data which goes to the server. So that definitely is going to reduce the traffic of the data. And we, of course, we talk about big data. If you talk about one of the applications, what we did in Korea in Samsung, everybody knows you've got big display panels and FPDs and all these things. So we test each and every display panel. The quality, can you imagine how much data it must be generating? So that data is moved on the industrial Ethernet network for the quality analysis. So every equipment, every machine generates the data with the old controller or a big controller. We need to take it away and we need to put it into the appropriate format. That is very, very important. So that's my point on that. But it's
Fantastic.
very easy to implement. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. I agree with you. So the TSN part of it, which is new, where a lot of people are working on it, it's a very new thing. Edge computing, for that matter, is definitely catching up, no doubt about it. In fact, we have few architectures from Intel also that we are trying to work on. But having said that, I would like to go to Kedar because he's the consumer that who would be deploying these kind of solutions at his location. So what are the thought process that you have, Kedar? Like, for example, let's say if somebody wants to come down and say that, okay, I would like to do this like this ABCD for you. Or these are the challenges that you want to throw. Like one challenge that you just talked about was supply chain tracking and tracing for that matter, right? All the way from manufacturing to the end customer. So what are your thought processes on enabling such a journey?
So that's a very good question, Amit. And since we don't have time, I'll be very brief about it. And let's stick to the example that we said, grain to glass, as we call it, right? So we start with a grain of rice and end up in a glass that's in the consumer's hand. The biggest challenge is the disparity of data with many stakeholders, right? Because it starts right away from a farmer who produces that grain and it ends with the consumer. Ideally, as a supply chain, as the owner of the supply chain, I would like to have all the data, right? So that we are able to not only manage the consumer demand as well as we can, but do it in such a way that we don't spoil the environment, we prevent leakages, do it in an efficient manner. But this data resides with many people, right? So I mean, the farm data resides with the farmer. I have a huge, we have about 4,000 suppliers. They have their respective data. They have their own legacy system on which the data resides. We have our own manufacturing network, which is also at a different level of maturity. So again, our data capture is at a different level. Part of it is on the cloud, part of it is in on-premise. It's a bit all over the, and then you get into the primary and the secondary and the tertiary consumers, right? In most cases for us, primary consumer is the government. And surprisingly, their data quality is pretty good, right? But the secondary consumer is the beverage alcohol retailers. Their data is in shambles, right? So in order to, the first challenge for us to capture this data in a more secular manner, right? So that's very critical for us. Second challenge is our ability to take risks. And this is where startups come in, right? So we have to have a bit of a balance in terms of, an organization which has survived for I don't know how many years, hundreds of years, like Diageo, right, in various forms, and a startup which is more agile, coming in afresh with really good thinking. Where do you hit a sweet spot? I think that is a managerial challenge for me in terms of how do I use the agility and the fresh thinking of the startups to combine all the data that we have to satisfactorily and sustainability serve our consumer, right? That's a balance which is very critical. I can again speak for a much longer time, but since we don't have time, if some startup can come and say that, okay, I will give you end-to-end data visibility and do it in such a way that also is in sync with our traditional ways of working, I think we've absolutely got it right. I mean, then it creates a possibility that can create a very strong legacy for not only Diageo but for the startup world as well, right? So we are looking for that kind of a support. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, perfect. No, thank you again for the lively discussion. Would have loved to have some questions, but seems like our audience are little slow on the day today. So, but having said that, I would like to throw out one question to everyone before we just wrap it up. This journey, like for example, the startup that you just talked about, Kedar, where the startup has innovative thinking, no doubt about it. They are fresh in mind, but they miss a very critical aspect, which is basically the legacy of credibility that you associate with them. Like Mitsubishi, if you talk about Mitsubishi, you know very well the automation will work, right? Similarly, when you go look at L&T, L&T has been around for a long time, right? So these are credible organizations. How does a startup get associated or bring credibility in their solution? Because we have a lot of startup today. So I just want to throw that as a question, and maybe somebody, if anyone can just take an answer to that.
Can I ask a question?
Pradeep ji.
Yes. Sir, please. This is taking me back some years. The concept of minimizing the bullwhip effect in supply chain, putting an intelligent reader or a analytic engine. So we had done some work in the late 90s where we were building an agent operating system where a federation of agents would sit this is, I'm talking Carnegie Mellon research days, federation of agents would sit along the entire supply chain to continuously feed data to a central point so that minimizing the bullwhip effect. There was a Cambridge study that had come out called Collaborative Forecasting and Research, which would effectively address Kedar's issue of end-to-end all the suppliers. So if this was an Arrow Electronics had done this model along with HP 20, 21 years ago. Is that somehow finding its way in the industry today in the IoTs now that the data extraction has become easy? This project failed. So, in full disclosure, this project didn't go much further than maybe 1 or 2. 9/11 happened actually and derailed it. But does that kind of add any value to you, especially in your case, where all your suppliers' nodes are now connected, feeding data to you, the ultimate data owner, who can then optimize your supply chain and minimize the bullwhip effect by collaborating with everyone in the supply chain? Is that something that you would find of interest? Because I know 1 or 2 people in the operations world who can I can connect you to them. This was a question for Kedar.
Is that directed to me question?
Yes.
Yes, Kedar.
Yes, generally, specifically to you, generally to the industry stalwarts.
So Pradeep, why don't I take a shot at answering it first? Yeah? I think that kind of a service would be of an immense value to us, right? Right now, what is available to us, and we are a little traditional industry, so we may be a few steps behind Mitsubishi and Bosch and the likes, right? So what's available to us is a complete data visibility and partnership in pockets. I will give you an example. Right now, we are using Blue Yonder for our transportation management system, in which we connect ourselves with our transporters, right? So we exactly know when a truck is required, when the truck will get dispatched, etc., etc., etc. For how much time is it going to be on the road? If it gets lost, where can I find it? But that solution is limited to only logistics.
Asset tracking and logistics.
Only logistics right now. But supply chain is, buying raw materials, manufacturing them, warehousing them, sending, transporting them. So it's all about plan, source, make, move, and consumption. If we get a solution which combines all these aspects of supply chain, it will be of an immense value. Right?
So Pradeep, I'm sorry, we are running a little short. I'll have to close.
One sentence. FDA had mandated this for all medicines in the United States to trace every molecule coming from every plant. The track and tracing that you just mentioned is happening in the pharma industry today. I will take your details from Amit or from Pushkar. I'll send you some links. This is happening today using the FDA example. It's a pharma example, but I think it'll apply to you as well. You guys are selling drugs too, right?
So maybe it's a pleasure part of it that is coming in, Pradeep. So anyway, thank you so much again, Kedar, for giving us a perspective of the end customer itself for an organization which is running both legacy as well as modern transformation that you are trying to drive. Sunil, for giving us the picture of both the sides of the world, which is as a manufacturer and as an automation provider. And then Ashish for giving us a view of how services is transforming industry adoption itself, right? Now, having said that, amazing discussions. There are a lot of questions that are coming in actually now, but unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we'll just break here and would love to interact, and maybe questions that are there offline can be handled by the NASSCOM team. So over to you, Navratan.
Thanks a lot, Amit, Ashish, Kedar, and Sunil. Wonderful insights you brought to light. And it was an excellent conversation on the fireside about the IoT and AI. Thanks a lot once again. And if there are any questions from the audience, please send us on the questions and we will forward it to the speakers and get them connected with you or answered by them. Thanks a lot. Now I would like to present the Khichdi case studies by some innovators who served this hard to refuse dish through actual use cases that they've done. I request Mr. Pushkar Apte from Qualcomm to initiate a chat with the startups along with their brief introduction. Pushkar Apte has been with Qualcomm for over 11 years, and his current role based out of Bangalore, he leads the Qualcomm Design in India program activities, which include the Qualcomm Design in India Challenge and more well known for QDIC, which is one of the India's longest running hardware and IoT startup incubation program. Prior to this, he was responsible for driving chipset sales and leading Indian smartphone brands. Before joining the Indian team in 2011, he was based out of San Diego, where he was the regional lead for chipset business development activities for sub-Saharan African region. Pushkar had earlier served in various engineering roles at Texas Instruments, supporting major customers accounts like Motorola, BlackBerry, Palm, and the Nokia. Pushkar holds a BE degree in Electronics and Telecom Engineering from University of Pune, a MS in Electrical Engineering from Texas A&M University, and an MBA from University of Southern California. He loves to use his bike over ghats of Lonavala and Mumbai, so you might see him sometimes if you are driving on that route. Over to you, Pushkar.
Thank you, Navratan. Can you hear me? Just want to do a
Yes.
voice check. Yeah, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I didn't give you the last piece, but you've been following me on WhatsApp. So thank you very much for adding that bike piece of it. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to one and all on this panel for the startup case studies on the application of IoT and AI across different verticals. Just to quickly introduce myself, just to add, Sudipto Roy had talked about the Qualcomm Design in India program earlier in his talk, and that's the program I manage as part of the regional strategy engagement team for Qualcomm's technology licensing business unit based out of Bangalore. I'll be your host for today, and joining me on today's panel are 4 experts from 4 different startups, and they represent different verticals, namely healthcare, automotive, and industrial IoT. So first of all, let me introduce our panelists to all of you. Let me start off by introducing Guchu Lalwani. He's the co-founder of Nivi. Guchu takes care of all the product engineering at Nivi. He has a lot of experience in mobility space, ranging from core wireless networks to mobile devices. He was part of the product engineering at Nokia devices as well. Further, he has also worked with various OEMs in the past on the go-to-market and type approval activities. So Guchu, if you could just wave out your hand and let the audience know that you're there. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Appreciate that. Next, let me introduce Animesh Bajpai. He's the growth marketing lead at Flutura. He's been the customer's voice both within and outside the organization. Having interacted with a multitude of companies in regard to their digital journey, Animesh has developed a strong sense around the future of industrial IoT. He's actively working towards creating a machine vision-based product which can help industries improve their quality, yield, and safety. He strongly believes that the next industrial revolution has begun and that its green shoots are clearly visible right here in India. So with that, Animesh, please say hello to the audience. Thank you very much. Following that, I have Pradeep Walia, who you heard comment and also ask a question to the previous panel. Pradeep is based out of Chicago, and he is the founder of Artificial Learning Systems. Fondly, we call them as Artilis. It is one of the early AI healthcare companies in the world, having dedicated over 25 years in technology and healthcare space. Pradeep has been involved in several high-tech startups and has seen his share of successes and failures as well. Pradeep is a passionate techno-philanthropreneur, if I got that right. Yeah, very complicated word, but with close to about 18 years of experience in AI and robotics, he has founded Artilis to bring the healthcare to the forgotten billion. He's also a prolific angel investor and also a part-time dreamer. In his spare time, he can be seen writing a book on the impact of robots on the global economy. Very interesting. He's a graduate of Penn University and has a master's from Carnegie Mellon University as well. Pradeep, give a thumbs up to our audience.
Artifact robots. That's really
Thank you very much. And finally, I have Karan Makhija. He is the CEO and co-founder of IntelliCar Telematics. Karan has spearheaded the company since the inception, and he's grown the company about 5 times year on year. He has over 10 years of experience in the automotive sector across Asian and European markets, with many leading OEMs in multiple areas spanning design and development, manufacturing, setting up of assembly and testing facilities, including consulting as well. He's also worked with Accenture Management in the past in the areas of innovation and new product development. While pursuing his MS in automotive engineering from Cranfield University, UK, Karan has worked on hybrid and electric vehicle technology, as well as on real projects with Garrett Turbochargers and Jaguar Land Rover on development of hybrid electric turbochargers. So welcome to the panel, Karan. Okay, if you could turn on, yeah, I see you. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So, I'm taking a different approach today for the panel. Instead of having just a Q&A format, what we decided, because it's a case study panel, perhaps I'd like to introduce the company with a teaser video, and then I'd like each of our founders to talk about the use case for utilizing the combination of IoT and AI, and how they've been able to address a particular problem when working on their individual startups. And then that will be followed by a few questions from my side, and feel free to put in your questions in the chat window, which I would be able to take after all the 4 panelists have gone through their presentations. So that's a format that I'd like to take forward. So moving on, let me introduce Artelis, and in no particular order, this alphabetical order. So Artelis is an AI healthcare company that believes in applying deep learning technology to bring the healthcare to the forgotten billion, specifically in India. So with that, let me share my screen and play a video on Artelis, followed by a presentation that Pradeep will make. I don't use Zoom much, so give me a second here. Hopefully I can figure this out.
Close to $9 trillion will be spent on healthcare in 2020. Over 3 billion people live with little to no healthcare in the world. The amount of money being set aside for the forgotten billion, no one knows, no one cares. There is a massive patient-physician gap that is compounding this problem of uneven healthcare spending around the globe. Something has to be done to bring healthcare to them, and we at Artelis are on a mission to democratize healthcare for the forgotten billion. How do we plan to do this?
By using state-of-the-art cutting-edge technology developed in our labs, using the latest advancements in deep learning and artificial intelligence, we plan to embark on a global screening campaign to screen all marginalized people, like the native Indian in USA to the Aborigines in Australia, the Adivasi tribes in India to the people in Africa and South America. We will screen 100 million marginalized people for DR, glaucoma, and other diseases, and we hope to set into motion a chain reaction that will create an ecosystem where others like us will join the movement to screen the forgotten billions. Just like the 2 crazy brothers who thought people could one day sit in a metal tube and fly in the air. Just like the crazy fakir in a loincloth who sat out to protest against injustice and started a revolution that brought down the British Empire. Just like the crazy scientist who put people on the moon with technology that is simpler than the cell phone we carry in our hands. The crazy people in Artelis believe we can bring healthcare to the entire world using AI and other advances in technology. May this tiny spark set into motion a movement that will save millions and millions of lives through automated screening for healthcare. Thank you.
So with that introduction on Artelis, let me invite Pradeep to share his insights on how he's been able to utilize the deadly combination of IoT and AI to bring a very innovative solution in the healthcare space. Please go ahead, Pradeep. If you'd like to share something, please use the share option.
I can try. So I'll try to share some elements of my screen, but most of the screen has actually been converted to this. So I'll go to skip slides. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I'll start with the beginning, and we are trying to see there is a global shortage of physicians. That's a well-known fact. The patient-physician gap is so intense that doctors don't have time, literally, whether it's in India or whether it's in Africa or the US, though forget it. Western worlds, forget it. Especially in non-critical diseases, doctors are not even paying attention. So ophthalmology falls in that, sometimes falls in the non-emergency where screening, etc., falls in an orphan space. They're so busy with surgeries that they don't have time for routine screening. This slide you saw, this was a 2-year-old data that by 2020, 8.7 trillion will be spent in the Western world. And who knows what will be spent in the rest of the world. So we set out, when we set out in 2014-15, the genesis of this idea was how to, there was an AI, big data, and all those confluence coming, and the exponential technologies were converging. And my thought process, along with a few of our co-founders, were, what do we want to do? Do we want to take advantage of this in the industrial segment or in the supply chain or retail? We had been gone through consulting in all our lives. Somehow that feeling of healthcare continued to come back, and India was calling really hard. I've been in the US all my life. Last 5 years I spent predominantly in India. India was calling really hard, and I said, healthcare in India will be the combination to go forward with, which is what happened. And from there on, the rest is like, how do we take how do we train our models? How do we build a system which is cross-platform? And so there's a lot more behind the technology, but then the first application was ophthalmology. And I can touch a little bit on some of the other applications, but we'll stick to ophthalmology today. We started thinking of point-of-care diagnostics. People go get their eyes examined, and then 2 days later, 3 days later, they're getting the results. And this applies across all diagnostics. You will get your blood test in, maybe today it's a few hours. It used to be 5 years ago, it would take 1 or 2 days. So point-of-care diagnostics was becoming a predominant theme. Where you get your diagnosis, where you get your examination done, therein you get your diagnosis done. That married together with what is called an evidence-based medicine. So now I'm a doctor practicing and I need to take your blood test. I send you to get a blood test. You may or you may not come back with the report. At least forget the Western world where everything is connected. But I'm talking predominantly in the forgotten billion marketplace. People sometimes don't even get their blood work done. So forget about the eye exam. We found a way to conceptualize that if I can immediately do, and I'll share a screen with you with the machine sitting right on my desk. If I can give an eye exam to you right now and point out that you have a potential problem, more than likely you're going to go see a doctor for treatment. That's evidence that I'm giving you that you have a problem. Retinopathy, glaucoma, and a few other very blinding, non-irreversible blinding diseases do not have symptoms. They creep up on you over the years like heart, blood pressure. Be very, very useful in countries like India, a continent like Africa, and other places. So point of care diagnostic became the key word for us. And we went to the field. We did not want to create a product that was perfect like all the big names do today. We just built something, MVP, put it out in the market in 2016, and we built fast and failed fast. And we will talk about the failure part and how Qualcomm saved our bacon on that. Current workflow point of care is, you go get your test done, report goes, and then the treatment starts. We disrupted that by saying, a product on the chip, go get the examination done. This is the workflow. Go get the examination done, diagnose positive case, get treated, negative case, come back next year. Boom, done. All these steps, this whole 3-4 steps, typically taking 2-3 days, eliminated. And how we were able to do that is thanks to this Qualcomm Design in India challenge. When we were taking our products to the field, we were also AWS cloud and very happy with the performance of the cloud and everywhere. But as soon as we stepped out of Bangalore into a small town called Chingalpit, our camps completely collapsed. The image uploading to the cloud was taking more than a few seconds, and the disruption was there, and the results were not coming back on time. Internet was flaky. Wi-Fi was supposed to be awesome, but it was not. And multiple camps outside of the city limits gave us an idea that, this won't work. If we have to make this happen, we have to figure out how to do it. So we were toying with the local idea of how to embed our algorithms inside a laptop, take our server laptop, do a local connectivity. When this Design in India challenge came about, with Qualcomm's help, we were able to shrink all our footprints into a small Snapdragon chip. And suddenly the whole world opened up for us. The whole non-rural, non-urban world opened up for us. We were able to penetrate rural India very, very, very nicely. Now we have done camps in places as remote as Dimapur in Nagaland, Chingalpit, of course, Bongaon in West Bengal, middle of nowhere in Bihar, places I don't even know. I've been there, but I don't remember their names. Benefits, these are, we'll talk about that a little later. So this is our core technology. It's a crude representation of a deep neural net over 200 million, 500 million neurons and 200 layer deep. It's a very crude representation, skip nets and whatnot. But all these modalities we take in, we process it and we diagnose it and we give you the outputs. As I said, it's a very, very crude representation. Some of our use cases, so we went beyond ophthalmology and we have all these other, so we will kind of skip from here. Here is the problem we are solving. For people, diabetes is something that they think is not something that will happen to them. 100 million people in India have diabetes, over 650 million people worldwide have diabetes, and 1 in 3 will get this disease. It's not a question of when will, but it's a question of when they will get it. They will, it's just unavoidable. 1/3 people will get it. And if you don't get your eyes examined on time, and if it progresses a little longer, you will go blind, and it's irreversible, unlike cataract. It's a huge problem coming. Here is our solution. It's a simple, if I can, I'll try to show this video. So this is a short video. Some of our scientific validations going back into the 2016 when we started promoting ourselves, and we came all the way. We're a very, very high sensitivity right now. And effectively, I'm going to turn this screen sharing off and come back to all of you. Effectively, the game changer for us was this chip, and it's a Snapdragon chip sitting on a cell phone. All our algorithms are shrunk into it, and we kind of take it wherever we go. Now, when I've been in the US since the COVID shutdown, and I've talked with a lot of folks here, believe me, the problem of rural connectivity exists here as well. It is not they are very as much as you think America really kuch nahi hai. Yahan pe bhi वही problem hai jo wahan pe hai. You come 20 minutes outside the city and your calls are dropping. So doctors here appreciate that rural community screening can be done with our chip. One unintended consequence, and this is the best part of our story, I think, one unintended consequence of this was data security. No data leaves the device. It stays localized. So if I am embedded this into a hospital, it stays inside the hospital. It's not going to the cloud. So patient data security problem got eliminated at the source because of everything being done locally. We don't store any data. We integrate it with your hospital network. They can take it off the image. And when I'm pointing it out, I'm pointing, this is the camera there. So the camera is local. They can take the image from the camera straight into their EMR. Patient data doesn't leave the facility. that was an unintended consequence, but it's become a huge talking point for us. Questions?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that very interesting use case. I think as you mentioned, you were part of a cohort at one point, and probably that's what the jury saw to pick you as the winner of the contest. But that apart, I have a quick question. See, any AI model is as good as how it is trained, right? Or the training set that has been used to train it. And getting access to this training data is a challenge that most of the AI companies face, more so in the health tech sector because of privacy issues. So, do you want to comment on how easy or difficult it is, and what could be done by the government and the industry jointly to alleviate that, especially in the vertical that you're working in healthcare?
Yes, Pushpa, that's the question of the day, actually. Data, when we started off, we got lucky. 2014, 15, people were thinking of data as a burden, and they were happy to give it to us. We collected a lot of data, and people thanked us for it. Not the other way around. But as the deep learning and the AI wave continued to come along, people realized data is a valuable commodity. For us, that we have enough data through our camps and fieldwork that the need for data within ophthalmology is minimized. However, the thing has shifted to quality of data, the labeling of data. So I can give you 1 million X-rays, and they're just going to remain X-rays unless some doctor has sat down and annotated those and labeled them correctly for us to be able to train the machine. So it's like me giving you the entire Library of Congress, but if I don't give you labels where to find what, it is useless. So same approach as now. What we have done, at least in a limited way, is have teams of annotators. So we have created certified graders and certified annotators, and we've signed up with a lot of doctors who do the annotation for us. So we have a system, we call it the 20% rule, and then we've put it into a golden folder. So we take 1 million to 200,000 to 40,000, and then that goes into the folder. So quality of data has become very critical. How can the ecosystem help us? How can the government help us? Government is sitting on a data trove. They are sitting on a mountain of data, and they really should do an industry government tie-up where you tie one hospital with one company. We don't even need all of the aims. You just give us one. We don't even need all of India's hospital system. One hospital will have everything we need as a company. So if a government could, we should be able to connect the dots. That would be something we could use.
All right, great. In the interest of time, I'll probably move on to the next panelist, and I have a few more questions, but if we are left with time at the end of the discussion, we'll get back to those. So with that, let me introduce the next startup, which is Flutura. Flutura is an AI platform company focused on improving two core business objectives, namely the asset uptime and the operational efficiency. Right. So with that, let me see if I can play the introductory video on Flutura, and following which I will invite Animesh to talk about the use case they've been addressing as part of their company. hopefully all of you were able to view that video. Good morning once again, Animesh. Please go ahead and talk about the use case that you want to share with the audience.
Thank you, Pushkar, for giving me the opportunity. I will quickly present. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
So before I begin, Flutura has been into IoT and has been combining AI with industrial data, but has been predominantly using signal data for the past 8 years. We've been lucky to work with some of the biggest companies in the world, some Fortune 500 companies we've been working with. And then we realized recently that one of the key data point we were not accessing, and that was the video streams. And this is where we started working on video analytics and how do we use computer vision, machine vision to ensure better results, better insights, to create a much more intelligent platform for the companies to have an efficient operations. The story of Industrial 4.0 will be completely, will be incomplete, as a matter of fact, without machine vision. And why I say this is because the rapid industrialization that has happened recently has created a lot of opportunities for the workforce. And along with the number of opportunities, what it has done is it's created an unsurmountable amount of pressure to get things right by the workforce. But as we say, the human is to err, but the cost of that error is actually very high in some of the context. And this is where machine vision can actually really help and take that pressure off and work in tandem with, work in tandem with the industry to help out the worker and improve the efficiency of the industry as well. What we decided to do was start off with simple use cases such as your object detection in the safety area, detection of hard hats, detection of jackets, detection of glasses, shoes, etc. And then we realized that the scope of the whole inspection domain was huge. And the scope started increasing the moment this pandemic hit us. And as we say, as with other digital technologies, the adoption of machine vision has increased with the after the pandemic. We started off with safety inspection, and then we moved on to detection of mobile phones using in the facility. We loitering of people in the restricted area or the danger zones, as we call it, red zones we call it. And what happened was that this really clicked with few of the industries, and we got very, very positive responses. As you can see that there were multiple challenges, and we learned through our customers, honestly. From safety, we moved on to the operations and quality, where we got numerous requests saying that, can you also detect surface defects? Can you detect weld defects? Can you detect corrosion defects? So we started doing that also. And then we realized, we researched a lot, and then we realized that there are a plethora of cameras. There's so many cameras around in one singular industrial unit, but the video feed is not being used as much as it can be. Maximum it is, in a lot of places, it is being manually monitored. Somewhere it is being monitored regularly, somewhere irregularly whenever the need comes across. But what we are saying is that using that CCTV footage or different camera footage, multiple use cases can be addressed simultaneously. In an automated fashion, processes can be created through which a worker can be enabled to do their job better. In that fashion, I will present you one particular case study here. So this was one of the use case that we recently completed with one of the largest PCB manufacturer. So we identified that there were 20 such defects that generally they were monitoring manually and ensuring that the defective pieces don't go out to the customer. And the impact of such defect was super high. And the PCBs were going into control systems. If the PCBs are defective, the control system could fail, the machine would simply drop dead. Then what we did was we started off with 5 defects. We created a self-learning model, and then we showed it to our customer. They really loved it. We deployed it, and then we started working on 15 more defects. And defects such as mouse bites, defects such as improper soldering, defects such as your cracks. So we were able to do that for PCBs, and now we are reaching out to different things. The other, as I said, was your HSE, in the area, in the domain of HSE, where we started off by, as I told you, we started off by detecting simple objects such as jackets and hard hats. But after the pandemic, we got the request that, can you help us ensure that people are wearing masks? We said yes. We started working on ensuring that there is social distance is maintained between people within the facility. We have also started to ensure that through vision, computer vision, we can monitor if people are washing hands regularly, or any other process, any other custom events that a company wants, that can be done. So these were a couple of use cases. And in the end, I would like to conclude by listing down a plethora of use cases, which are corrosion detection, cycle time monitoring in production that we are working on, root cause analysis. If there are conveyor belts in your facility, then the operations can be monitored, the cracks, and if there's any irregularity, that can be monitored. The sequence of operations can be monitored, and the supervisors can be notified in case there is something wrong. Aerial surveillance in solar farms using drones is a very good use case, where machine vision is actually helping using spotting for the hotspots in the solar panels which develop. And then later on, intrusion and one peculiar, not peculiar, but very interesting use case is parking management, where in logistics, the trucks are deployed and they stay in parking lot for days, and they're charged for that. So if the parking lot is huge, if there are thousands of trucks, it is difficult, really difficult to manually monitor. So this is where machine vision and our product is actually helping out to helping out industries solve their different issues. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Animesh. That's a lot of use cases. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. So one question is, how is the adoption of machine vision for these use cases? Are you seeing challenges there, or how has the journey been for you so far in terms of getting these the use cases rolled out?
Right.
Yeah.
So Pushpa, we are getting the use cases, but as Pradeep also pointed out, that the bigger problem is data. So there are images and there are videos, but they're not annotated. So what we are trying to solve through that problem is that we have internally created a self-annotated tool, in fact, which can learn and start annotating a particular defect or a particular thing, object, so that the labeling gets easier. So this is one of the bigger hurdle. The second hurdle that we are facing, Pushkar, is that the belief. So as one of the esteemed panelists in the previous session said, that everything has become a very ROI driven concept now. But we need to realize that we are trying to build bring some sophisticated technology as machine vision, and we are trying to apply on legacy systems or legacy processes. So that disconnect to bridge that disconnect will take some time. But the ROI still with machine vision has been the fastest, in fact, faster than the sensor data.
Cool. Thanks for sharing those insights. In the interest of time, I'm going to hold off on other questions and give the other panelists a chance to talk about their interesting use case. So with that, I move on to the next company, which is IntelliCar Telematics. IntelliCar, I'll skip the introduction. I'll just play a video that should give you a good insight on what the company does, and then I'll request Karan to, in the interest of time, maybe if possible, go a little bit faster through the use case so that we can get to some questions at the end of it. So with that, let me share the screen quickly and run the video. All right, that was really a teaser. So Karan, please go ahead and discuss with the audience the use case that you have in mind.
Thank you, Pushkar. And I think the problem that we are trying to solve at IntelliCar here from 2015 primarily has been around data. Our belief essentially when we started off in 2015 and we were focusing on the IoT space, we entered into the automotive space primarily because of my experience and understanding into the automotive and mobility domain. And understanding that today from a telematics angle and the companies that existed back in 2015 were primarily companies that focused on basic track and trace solutions. And the question that we asked ourselves is that cars today and from 2015 were generating massive amounts of data back then as well, but nobody was collecting them. Nobody was using this data either internally to improve their business decisions, or even how do you connect the larger, the segregated automotive ecosystem using this data to provide a better service and experience to the end customer, right? I think we are seeing that today and how Tesla is able to use data across the entire ecosystem for them to benefit and provide a great customer experience. That was primarily our motive for getting into this. Today, as a company at IntelliCar, we work with all kinds of domains today, from shared mobility to logistics and smart logistics. We work with companies that are tech-driven logistics companies. We work with companies who are in the shared mobility space primarily, who require data, IoT to be able to run their business. We work with large OEMs on various aspects of their data, whether it is construction equipment, electric vehicles, two-wheeler, three-wheelers, it doesn't really matter. We focus primarily on the automotive and mobility segment end-to-end. The way we essentially work, and I think Ashish in the previous panel was discussing this as well, primarily how we work is we do sort of consultative sales. We go into the organization, we understand the kind of issues that an organization is currently facing, and what kind of data that we can extract from the vehicle, either which is already existing using the existing sensors on the vehicle, or adding sensors of our own to be able to get that data to the customer and how that data can be manipulated, what kind of algorithms can be put over that data using artificial intelligence, machine learning, to be able to solve the customer's problem, right? And I'll walk you through probably 2 or 3 use cases that we essentially had worked with a lot of clients. We were working with a shared mobility player who's a large taxi aggregator in India. There are only 2, so you can guess who that could be. And this was primarily for when we started off working with them back in 2015. They had, and that's when they had just launched and they were scaling massively. They were facing a lot of issues with fake trips. I'm not sure if everybody remembers this, but this was a massive issue for all the taxi aggregators because the incentives were very high for drivers to do a certain number of trips, and if they cross a certain number of trips, their incentives would really skyrocket. So a lot of the drivers were essentially gaming this system to be able to essentially get those massive amounts of incentives. So we've essentially entered the organization and we understood that, okay, one of the major problems that they had at that point in time was essentially solving fake trips. So what we began to do is we began to collect data from the vehicle and understand when a fake trip and how can we understand when a fake trip was happening. And surprisingly, very simply, what we realized was every time, so we were collecting data on various points of the vehicle. One of the data points was if the door opened or closed and when it was opened and closed. And what we realized very simply was, every time there was a fake trip, there was no doors that were opened or no doors that were closed. And just using this one simple data point, we were able to identify massive amounts of fake trips with drivers, right? We also work with a large shared mobility player, probably India's largest shared mobility player on the self-drive space. They had a very different problem on the maintenance side of things. They had multiple drivers driving the same vehicle in different ways, different terrain, right? Some people were novice drivers, and one of the indications that they were not able to get was when the clutch of the vehicle is about to fail, because today vehicles don't come with any kind of clutch sensor. So what we were then able to do is then extract relevant data points, various data points from the vehicle, use sensor fusion, and be able to give you a derived health of the clutch. We also were able to provide a clutch score in terms of how the particular user used the clutch. And if he was abusing the clutch at one point in time, we were able to essentially activate SMSs to the customer to help him understand how to drive better, how to essentially lower the damage on clutches. And this gave an end-to-end visibility to the customer to ensure that the clutch doesn't fail with the customer when the vehicle is with them at a remote location. So this was able to, so using data, essentially, we were able to solve multiple problems around this. We were even able to go into the construction equipment, working with a large construction equipment manufacturer who essentially manufactured equipment to construct roads. And here we were able to understand if the contractor had done the compaction on the road correctly, if the tar was laid correctly at the right temperature, so to understand how the road was essentially constructed. So essentially the idea that the way we function and the way we look at ourselves primarily is a data company. Our primary goal is to be able to figure out how we can collect more amount of data and what kind of value we can add either back to the customer or to the greater ecosystem, to be able to connect the larger ecosystem, to be able to add value to the end consumer who's essentially using the particular service or product.
Great. Thanks, Karan. Really interesting use cases. I think with the V2V becoming reality in the coming future, I think the possibilities are endless when it comes to some of these use cases developing into really interesting and complex, to say the least, right? So I'll hold off on the questions and give Guchu a chance to present the use case, which covers industrial IoT. So with that, Guchu, I hand it over to you. In the interest of time, I'm not playing the introductory video on Nevi. I hope that's okay. If you would want to share something, please go ahead and talk about the use case.
Sure. Thank you, Pushkar. And let me know if I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll share the slide, and what I'll do is I'll talk about Nevi for a few minutes and then get into the use case. So that will cover up all the video part, which we didn't do. I hope it's okay with all. So we are an industrial analytics company, and what we do for our manufacturing customers is to bring predictability in delivery, predictability in the quality of the yield being delivered, and the cost of manufacturing operations. Now, having said that, I will start with an anecdote wherein we've seen sensorization being available and being used by various industries and making an impact of it. Be it fintech, be it retail, the way of business and the way they are earning revenue through it has changed tremendously. The mode of operations has changed. For manufacturing per se, sensors have been there for long, but the impact has not been made. And that has not been made just because the data which we are having from the sensors has been used in silos. Analytics has been built up, they've been in silos. And like in the last session, a panelist from Diageo also mentioned that they're doing transport analytics. It's a siloed thing, but they would look at something which is connected end to end. That's the vision we have, we're practicing, and we firmly believe the companies would really make benefit of it. So what we do is we're trying to now connect these silos horizontally and bring in a predictability for our manufacturing customers. Because from a manufacturer's perspective, it is more about what they're going to get as a yield, yeah, as a quality and as an outcome. And they need to see how it works for them across the supply chain, across the operations, all the way to the outcome. The other challenge what we've seen is that analytics is not fed back to the shop floor. The real consumers are the people who are working on the shop floor. They are reactive with the output of analytics, and they're not getting it real time. It is like in the preview of a boardroom or to an analyst. So we made method where analytics is simply fed back in a usable manner to the shop floor, where they're clear actionables available for our customers to act on it in time and make use of it. And finally, it's not industrialized. It is done on need basis. So we're trying to bring it 24/7, where we're feeding real data to the analytics machine and bringing predictability out of it, so that actions can be done in real time. And how we do it, we have a platform called Bodhi. That's the solution what we are offering to our customers, which integrates the data from various sources, brings in predictability, and gives enough time to action it. To kind of divulge deeper as to how we model it for customers. So there are different aspects which come into manufacturing space. We have a product, what is being manufactured. It could be a discrete manufacturing operation, it could be a process industry, but then ultimate, what are we manufacturing and what are we trying to give to our customers, the manufacturing companies trying to deliver out there. So we try understanding that process, what goes through the whole chain, what steps need to be followed, what are the norms they are following as a guideline, what needs to be modeled in assets where they're manufacturing it, works into the skill of the workforce, what kind of shifts they are running, is it continuous 24/7, it is seasonal based, it is throughout the year, and those kind of insights are taken in, plus the impact of supply chain, the variability coming in. These all are modeled as sub processes, and we create a process sub digital twin for our customers. Now, the beauty of our platform is that each of these sub process digital twins can be connected to each other to all the way to the outcome. And as I said, what the customer is looking at is how is it impacting their top line and bottom line. We give them the visibility to connect all the way to the outcome. And this chain is being set up for our customers. Having said that, I had this thought of bringing up a certain use case. There are plenty which we deliver to our customers, but I thought I'll bring up a use case where we could bring in the prediction and how we could improve the process and improve the productivity for our customer. This is for an agrotech, and wherein they manufacture tobacco. And what we've done is we bring in a predictability to maintain the quality of the tobacco for a particular type of cigarette or cigar which is going to be manufactured. Now, it is a challenging process. Why challenging? Because the leaf, the grade of leaves that coming from different regions in India, from different type and variety of tobacco leaves, have a different characteristics. They don't maintain the same. There's impact of seasonality. Each tobacco variety has a different moisture absorption capability, and in the whole flow of manufacturing tobacco, the moisture content is a vital ingredient which they need to maintain in all the steps, around 40 odd steps which they go through. The moisture content at every step is very critical, and there are very few opportunities where we can influence them and control them to meet the stringent quality needed by a particular brand of cigarette or a brand of cigar which goes into the final process. So those stringent norms are to be met, and we have to take care of the variability. How this is happening across is that we know the variance is coming in all the way from supply chain to every particular process unit, where the variances could creep in because of either the skill, because of the machining type, because of process time, or because of lack of knowledge. And there are very few windows where we can make an impact of it. So in this, if we look at those windows, how Bodhi works is they collect the variances, the insights as to what is happening downstream, and then they give the feedback back to the control systems what they need to do to maintain an optimum output, which is as per the set point defined by the process. So in this particular use case, 90 seconds before the leaves get fed into the preconditioner, one of the places where the influence can be maintained effectively and at a high rate, we instruct the system back what should be the amount of steam, what should be the amount of flow rate, how many flow valves need to be open, and the output is as per the desired quality norms and as per the moisture level being out there. Now, what we do is we take in inputs from various systems. We analyze it, we predict what is going to happen at the outcome, at the far when we're going to get a yield, and we start tuning the system by actionables, which are sent back to the control systems, and they kind of normalize this deviation. Having said that, I would want to show what has happened for our customers before implementation. The red line on the screen is a set point, and we could see with all the PLC automation, with all the manual overrides in the processes, the skill of the manpower out there, they had a huge standard deviation of 1.76. But after implementation, where machine learning and artificial intelligence with the sensor data being taken in, we could impact it by 91%, and our deviation was very nominal to 0.15 to 1.17 out there, and that can be seen on the right side, where the amount of moisture is very close to the defined set point. With this, I would just briefly want to recap as to what we do at NEVI. We use the sensor data, we use the industrial IoT, machine learning, and artificial intelligence to make manufacturing visible, transparent, efficient, and autonomous from the start to the end, connecting all the dots. That's all, and I'm open to questions and inputs.
Thank you very much, Guchu. One thing I learned was how the autonomous manufacturing is different from process control. Having gone through this, and surprisingly, the improvement that I saw in the 91% was astonishing, right? So in the interest of time, please have a look at the Q&A window for questions the audience might have asked, since we have to wrap up the session here. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for sharing the use cases in your respective verticals. I think that would give the audience a good view of what's happening in the various sectors and what areas people are working in, utilizing IoT and AI together. In conclusion, I'll just say that when I think of AI and IoT, I think of the human body, right? The brain is the AI part, and the IoT hardware is the rest of the body that is actioning that, what the signals that are coming from the brain. And I think moving forward, just like the human body, the two are inseparable. One cannot exist without the other, or you cannot really get anything done without having the two together. So with that, thank you, audience, for joining us on this session today. And thank you, Navratan, for giving us the opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you, Pushkar. You've worked against time to get the best out of these startups. Also, we at COE have been working almost 14 hours a day post-COVID to get these hundreds of startups connected to the innovation adopting companies, including you. Thanks a lot once more. Now I invite our Intel director, Mr. Sumit Verma, who is a director for strategy. He leads key external alliances in the space of innovation, research, business development, and strengthens strategic engagements in priority technology areas like AI, IoT, etc. He collaborates with governments, both federal and state, industry associations, academia, incubators, accelerators, and the bright young innovators in the country. He is passionate to improve the skills of students and the youths to bridge the industry-academia gap and to promote the culture of tech innovation and tech entrepreneurship in the ecosystem. Sumit is alumni of IIIT Bangalore and Harvard Business School. Sumit, over to you, please.
Thanks, Navratan. Can you hear me okay? Quick check.
Yes.
Okay. Do I still have 10 minutes or do you want me to shrink it down?
Yes. If you can shrink, that will be bonus to us.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My session was supposed to start at the AM, but these sessions are so good and discussions keep on happening. So It's a bit delayed, and I think from an audience perspective, I want to finish it within the next 10 minutes so that the overall event is not really delayed. And the topic that is kind of given to me by NASSCOM is a little different than what I've been hearing for last couple of hours. This is more of a national agenda topic, largely how industry is focusing on research and collaboration, what the government policies are, etc. So if you are an industry that is focusing on research collaborations, or if you have a startup that has a research or an IP focus, this talk may be relevant to you. So I have shared my screen. I just have a couple of files. In the first one is a background. Primarily, key takeaways are is the research and development investment leads to disproportionate rewards in today's world. R&D is one of the most important contributor for an economy of a country, and it's highly essential to make significant investments in R&D for growth and development. We know that, right? India's R&D expenditure, as measured by gross expenditure in R&D, GERD, which is kind of percentage of R&D spent to GDP, is fairly low. It's about 0.75%, whereas other developed countries like Switzerland is about 2.75, US is about the same, Korea, Israel is 3.5 onwards. So R&D spends determines big nations from great nations and good companies from world leading companies. Third point is that while government is focusing on increasing India's spend in science and technology, and the percentage of spend has increased tremendously and continues to do so, it's still very less. And industry has a strong role to play in transforming the culture of research. Some gaps that exist. The first gap is on collaboration. Weaker linkages between academia, government, and industry. That linkage is a lot more robust in countries UK, US, UK, etc. And there is a much tighter research collaboration models that exist. There are some programs that Government of India has taken some steps on, like Imprint, to look and bridge the gaps. But still, from an industry perspective and from a startup ecosystem perspective, there is still a collaboration issues for large impactful research and IPs with associations from beginning to end. That challenge still remains. The second challenge was on the investment. We briefly spoke about it, that the GERD ratio is extremely low. But having said that, if we take a relation to the number of research publications that are happening, we are fairly high. We are number 5 in last year at a global level. However, from a intellectual index rate perspective, we have not been that great. We were about 40th few years ago, and then recently 45th, and I think the latest number may be 53, so we slipped out a bit. But point is, we're around the 50th mark in terms of intellectual property index globally, and which is not a great place to be in. And especially looking at the number of economies, major economies being no more than 60. So that's the background for you. And my second part is basically, what is happening in this space. I would like to point out that while government is doing its bit, there is a new initiative that is being rolled out. I would like to talk about that initiative so that if there is some benefit that the fellow industry members or the startup folks can take there, it would be really good for the program as well. So this is a new initiative that Government of India is in process of launching. It's called Fund for Industrial Research Engagement, FIRE. It's first of its kind research collaborations from start to end for India, which has three main objectives. Objective number one is to transform the culture of research. And why the culture of research is important? Because that's foundational. We have seen that, especially if we take an academic research in perspective, they are confined to, the labs and do not really go out to market. At the same time, how research is done even within companies requires a cultural change. And I'm generalizing it, but I'm sure there are some organizations that are role models it, but I'm just taking a general view what, government sees. Second is, impactful research for industry. What we see is that, industry or even any company, private company is doing its research internally, but not looking into external ecosystem to harness the research. And when they don't do that, then overall, technical ecosystem suffers. Third is, of course, government, industry, academia, overall collaboration. So looking at what opportunities India has, there are about 4 key opportunities. One is a huge talent pool of innovators, researchers. The overall infrastructure that we have in terms of telecom infrastructure, that's really phenomenal. There are also multitude of social and economic needs that only India has to solve, and so the problems really exist. And with the advent of private companies in India and more pro-government policies, there's no dearth of financial capability in the country, but sometimes it is kind of also channelizing those dollars to the right source. So with these 3 objectives, the program is a co-funded collaboration model between government and industry. So basically what happens is, if there is a problem that industry has or a private organization has, it is at the beginning co-funded by, assumed to be co-funded by the government. So if it's an applied research or a problem that results into an IP, that industry from the beginning gets a 50% funding from the government on that particular problems. Second is, big bets have to be made in national level. That's kind of can have a global impact as well. And the problems are both consortium models. So basically multiple industries can come together, or it could be a problem that spans multiple industries. At the same time, it could be specific to a particular company, right? Both problems are acceptable as long as they're like large and big problems. And the overall operating model is very collaborative. It will have a co-PIs both from the research organization that will do the research as well as the sponsor company. Government has very little role to play. And unlike other research models where researches happen, reviews happens very slow and infrequent, the aggressive reviews, so that we are able to keep the progress in track like in a typical private company, and agile schedules. So if you want to stop, resume, scale up, all that flexibility in the research is there. With that, the program impact that's expected from this program and similar programs like this that are in progress. 3 major things to talk about. One is inclusive research collaborations. How do we have increased research output and funding this through this industry and government collaboration? Second program impact that we would like to see is large-scale implementation of projects which are commercializable, not just research that sits into individual academic research labs, and have an impact at a national level with potentially a global relevance. And third, which is kind of IP generation. So IP generation in priority areas for the nation and most relevant to industry or private organization. And the focus would be that if the IP gets generated, the access or the rights to the IP could be with the industry itself. So totally applied research aligned to industry's priorities. So this is a unique program I thought may be interesting to folks attending this conference. It's called FIRE, Fund for Industrial Research Engagement. And before I wrap up the call, some key takeaways, right? First, of course, is industry collaboration is paramount to transform the culture of research in India. People who have been in this space, I myself have been engaging with researchers for the last 10, 12 years. And I see that in India, the culture of research is still not developed as in a global at a global level. And when you talk about culture, you can dissect it to multiple levels, but for the purpose of time, I'll just say culture in general. Second takeaway is that there are several breakthrough research opportunities available in a country like India. Anywhere we look, we have problems and large problems to solve. So there is no dearth of problems and industry challenges that will be mutually fruitful. And third takeaway, which I would like you to take is every organization and everyone has a part to play in developing this, research culture. And as we have KYC, know your customer, the question here is KYP, know your problem. What's your research problem, and what are you doing about it? So with these three takeaways, I would also like to leave you with one interesting quote by Bertrand Russell, which says like this: "The great challenge to any thinker is stating a problem in a way that will allow a solution." With that, thank you very much for listening. I'm okay to take a couple of questions, Navratan, based on your schedule, but thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. That was wonderfully served, piping hot insights on R&D to the audience. If there are questions, we'll definitely send it to you on email.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you.
The khichdi is not just a great food, but also great for health. And so that's why, how can we miss the health part of it? To present this perspective, we have Gerd Hoffner, MD of Siemens Healthcare in India. He moved to Bangalore in 2002, so he loves a lot of Indian dishes as well now, to head the software engineering department at Siemens Information Systems Limited, and went to become the MD of the company in 2010. Since 2016, he serves as managing director and president at Siemens Healthcare, overseeing operations that span sales and service for South Asia, manufacturing and R&D in India. He's also responsible for the development center of Siemens Healthcare, Healthineer, a global R&D organization that drives excellence in PLM with teams in India and Slovakia. Under his leadership, the company was recognized as one of the 26 most innovative companies in India at the CII Innovation Award 2017, and as one of the Bangalore's Hot 50 brands in 2018. From NASSCOM, the Development Center received the Global Capability Center Award for Operational Excellence in May 2018. Gerd Hoffner serves as chairman of the advisory board of Fraunhofer Institute for Experimental Software Engineering, chairman of the NASSCOM German Council, an ambassador of the German Indian Startup Exchange Program, and a member of the board of directors of Method Park Holding AG. He holds a master's degree in computer science with business economics. Mr. Gerd, over to you.
Thank you, Navratan, and good morning. Welcome to everybody. Usual question in virtual meetings, am I audible?
Yes, you are very well
yes.
audible. Thank you.
So then let me share my screen, and then my next question is if you can see my presentation.
Yes, if you can do it on the show.
Yeah, I'll put it on the
slideshow, please.
Slide. Okay. So what I'll be talking about is AI and connected medtech and how they are transforming the healthcare. And if you look at it, Over time, intelligence machines powered by AR are and will be at our core, shaping precision medicine for a better healthcare. Today, we have automated products and solutions which minimize unwarranted variations, which means we have intelligent automated devices with push button features. If you look at the images, for example, on the left-hand side, I mean, you have a CT scanner, and certain functions of, let's say, such kind of scanners are already automated and reconfigured, so that somebody who operates such a device simply has to push a button and then things will work automatically. You also have a task procedure-specific integration of sensors, devices, a reduced variability and improved precision for diagnosis and procedures, and of course, a workflow optimization and reduced operating costs. Tomorrow, you will have intelligent machines that enable precision decision-making in real time, of course, and you will also have machine learning powered image reconstruction and post-processing. We will shift features from hardware to software more and more. There are, for example, with machine learning, ways that you have, let's say, if you look at magnet resonance, that you can produce a much higher imaging quality through software. Let's say you have a scanner with 1.5 Tesla, and with software you can enhance the image quality, that you get the same quality you would be getting, let's say, with a scanner of 3 Tesla. You have a bidirectional interaction of hardware and the algorithms in designs and operations, new precise timely support of data from networks and sensors, and machine learning optimized and automated processes and workflows in labs and hospitals. And the long-term vision, and this is something I will talk about a little bit later in more detail, are digital twins. Well, first of products and solutions, and in the long run, in the future, also of individual. And the future, as I mentioned this already, is connected intelligence. You will have the Internet of Medical Things, which expands the healthcare availability and remote operations of procedures. We will have precision medicine based on pathways, augmented virtual reality, and human digital twins, and of course, self-learning network of machines. So those are the 3 levels from today: automated product solutions, tomorrow intelligent machines, and the future is a connected intelligence. Some of those topics at Siemens Healthineers we have already in our portfolio today, and this is shown here. For workflow automation, for example, we have a product which is called Synco Virtual Cockpit, and Synco Virtual Cockpit is being used for remote scanning assistance, improving the access and providing productivity. So in principle, it's a system where you can remotely operate a scanner, and in this way you get more flexible deployment of experienced personnel across different locations, because the experienced personnel can sit at one place and operate scanners, different locations, and in the respective locations which are operated remotely, you not necessarily need to have the highly experienced personnel available as well. Of course, you also will have a higher level of standardization in reports, leading to more accurate diagnosis, and it will improve the facility productivity in case you have personnel shortages, which is especially, let's say, a problem which we are trying to solve here in India. Looking at the topic of workflow automation, we have a AI-read companion platform, which helps automatically to highlight anatomies and abnormalities of multi-organ areas, also including incidental finding. Those findings are being transferred in structural reports. And typically those AI-read companions are specific for a body part as well as a modality. So the first one which we released was a chest CT read, and we are working on a number of additional radiology companions as well. And the basic benefit of those companions is for the radiology that he can, well, increase, number one, the accuracy, but also increase the number of images he'll be reading, because he'll be strongly supported by this AI-based radiology companions. And then when we come to machine intelligence, it's about decision making. We have a so-called AI pathway companion platform, which is a clinical decision support system based on artificial intelligence. And the AI pathway companion integrates the relevant data to facilitate diagnostics and therapy decisions along the clinical pathway. And it also supports the personalized diagnostics and therapy decision. So this is how it looks like today, what we already have available as products. Now let me talk a few minutes about the long-term vision, how artificial intelligence will change the way healthcare is being provided in the future. Typically in healthcare, you have two questions. The first question will be, how am I? Means, what is my state of health? And if I figure out that I have some health issues, the second question would be, what is my path to health? And those questions are being answered by the concept of the digital twin. The digital twin will give you the answer of how I am, and the pathway companions will show you the way to your health. Let me explain this in a little bit more detail. And of course, AI will be the lever to move us from image analytics to disease pathways and the digital twin. And this is the way how it will look like in the future. You have a digital twin of yourself on your mobile phone, and all information on how I am with regards to my health, for example, from the electronic health records, from any kind of imaging procedures, from all laboratory diagnostics which you have undergone, your genetics, all this will be the basis for your digital twin and will give you a clear picture of how you are. In case you figure out that there might be a certain health problem, you have the clinical pathway companion where you have all information on healthcare in real time, and where the doctor is also supported in terms of analysis and in terms of therapy. The pathway companion will also give you, let's say, recommendations about steps, what needs to be done, and will tell you about a likelihood, for example, of the success of the treatment. And yeah, that's it, how it looks like. Now let's look at the digital twin a little bit in more detail. So the digital twin can also be used as a patient avatar, as multi-source for procedure optimization. Could you please put yourself on mute? There are some background noises. Anyway, let me continue.
Please mute. Anybody who's unmuted, please mute, please.
Yeah, so here you can see the patient avatar as a multi-source digital twin for the optimization of patient procedure. You can use this for realistic 3D display for scan planning, or let's say if you are a surgeon, as a surgical use of 3D reality systems, or let's say also the 3D display augmented for therapy planning. Another application would be, this is something which we recently developed also to fight COVID, quantification of tomographic patterns associated with COVID-19 from a chest CT. And what we do here with this digital twin, of the image of the lung, we can calculate the percentage of opacity, the lung severity score, percentage of high opacity, or the lung high opacity score. And talking about, so those are two of the applications of a digital twin. If I would have a little bit more time, I could show you many, many more. But let me also talk a little bit about the pathway companions. The pathway companions, they map the patient data with the guidelines to enable AI-powered outcome predictions and decision support along the clinical pathways. Of course, any pathway is specific to an organ and the respective disease. So we are working on pathways for prostate cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, coronary artery disease, and in addition, analytics KPIs. So this is the first list, and you can imagine that the list of potential pathway companions is much, much longer. And the future of healthcare, and this is what I would like to close with, is based upon those two concepts. The digital twin answering the question, how am I with respect to my personal health? And pathway companions that answer the questions, what is my path to become healthy or to stay healthy? Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Gert. That was very wonderful. A good amount of information specifically for the COVID. Friends, imagine you are given an opportunity to invest in state-of-the-art khichdi restaurants. We're working on these two ingredients, that is the rice and the lentils, in our case, AI and IoT, and serving the global market from India. Let me invite Mr. Naganand from Idea Spring to initiate the discussion, inviting his fellow speakers. Naganand is a serial entrepreneur turned investor. After exiting his most recent startup, he founded Idea Spring Capital to fund and actively support product innovation startups. He enjoys working with entrepreneurs who have the vision and passion to build products for the global markets. Naganand is very well known, networked, and respected in the startup ecosystem, and he actively participates in various organizations focusing on entrepreneurships and innovations. Mr. Naganand, over to you, please.
Thanks a lot, Navratan, and pleasure to be here. And my apologies to all the audience for us from the late start of the session. I have here three very distinguished people with me on the panel. Swapna from Qualcomm Ventures, she's the director there and looks after the technology investments. Manish Singhal, who is the founder and managing partner at Pi Ventures, again, early stage fund focused on investing in technology-oriented startups. Manish, if you can put your video on, that'll be great. And then the third is Anirvan, who is part of Bloom Ventures investment team. And again, he is focused on looking at tech-oriented startups. So I think since we are short of time, I'll just quickly start the session. And sorry, apologies to all the co-panelists for not letting you introduce yourself. But I'll start with the first question for all three of you. And Swapna, you can start, followed by Manish, and then probably Anirvan. As you know, we have heard a lot about IoT in the past 5 years. So my question, quickly to all of you is, what have you personally seen in the past 5 years that has excited you? And on top of it, where do you see AI playing a part? Right? Probably a minute and a half, each of you. That'll be awesome.
Thanks, Naganand, and thanks to the audience for joining us today. So I think IoT, well, the term has been around for long time now. I think last 5 years have been phenomenal in terms of, I think, just application and proliferation of the technology, right? And the reason it has happened is, I think all of us know Moore's law, is over time we have been able to miniaturize sensors and make everything around us smart. So which hadn't happened in the past, but now we have the technology where you can just put sensors and make everything smart. And that's where IoT starts. Earlier, we used to do smartphones. That was the only smart things we knew. But over time, our refrigerator, our cars, everything started becoming smart. That is one part of IoT which we have been seeing, and we've been seeing applications across sectors. I think one sector which has seen tremendous growth and adoption is manufacturing. And we've seen that across manufacturing, oil and gas, which are the traditional industries, which have a lot of machines which need to talk, which need to sort of understand how systems are working. And I think AI is sort of a cherry on top in the sense that I don't think IoT and AI can sort of exist separately. They need to exist together, because if you have IoT, which means you have a smart machine, which now is giving you a lot of data. And once you have a lot of data, you need to dissect what you need to do with that data. And I think earlier in a world where we were, where people did edge and then they got a lot of data and then they realized they can't process all the data, they started sending everything to cloud, which made sense in certain applications. But now we are at a place where you can't send everything to cloud. There are applications like video surveillance. There are applications where you need real-time analytics, maybe it's oil spillover, and you need to have data dissected then and there. And that's where edge AI sort of becomes interesting. So those are the areas we are seeing a lot of adoption and action. And of course, with 5G roadmap,
specifically, you're saying industry like oil and gas is where, in your
manufacturing and oil and gas are the early adopters, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. I'll come back to you with a few more questions as we go along, but then I'll Manish, your thoughts on your experience of the kind of startups and areas you have seen in this space, IoT first, and then on top of it, AI. Manish, are you there?
Let me ping him actually.
Yeah, okay. Anirvan, before Manish joined, and I'll come to you, and then we'll wait for Manish to join. So, same question, your thoughts on what you have seen in your experience in the past 5 years.
I absolutely agree with Swapna. I think there's been a lot of adoption in manufacturing, whether it's predictive maintenance or creating digital twins of the manufacturing unit. There's been a lot of traction over there. Having said that, I believe with 5G and everything moving to the edge, there are going to be multiple opportunities, right? You've seen the proliferance of AMRs, autonomous mobile robots, which in a lot of ways is IoT and AI on the edge, right? And also, I think energy and utilities, when I say energy and utilities, I mean not just the oil and gas sector, where you're trying to prevent leakages, etc. But also in the renewable energy sector, we are seeing a lot of growth as of now. Collecting data from the inverters and trying to put it on a layer of AI and optimize the entire energy generation and also storage, right? So I think over there, in addition, I think there's a lot of scope in India to build a fabulous semiconductor companies, and it's not been, it's just not happened so far, but it is going to happen, and hopefully in the near future we are going to see some of that. One more area where I think there's tremendous scope is Internet of Medical Things, right?
I'll come back to where this scope. I just wanted to get your thoughts. What you've seen in the past 5 years, because
I think it's predictive maintenance primarily and digital twins in manufacturing.
Okay.
And now we are moving towards video intelligence, etc. But it's primarily predictive maintenance.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. But my question, however, though, is, I know that there are a lot of opportunities that exist, but we really haven't seen a breakout yet, right? In terms of even, when there's oil and gas. I know a few startups working in the space, but still having a hard time selling. Why do you think we are still experiencing that? What is causing that tension or stress in the market in terms of selling and scale?
Hi, Manish.
So Manish, Anirvan, let Anirvan finish, and I'll repeat the question for you. Go ahead.
So I think if you think about it from the tech stack point of view, I think the interoperability has been an issue, right? If you try to think about the interoperability, it hasn't there. And also within India, if you think from the Indian market point of view, that leveraging data and drawing analysis and automating control, that hasn't existed. Whether you talk about the pharma industry, whether you talk about the auto industry, it's being adopted right now. And one more factor I think that has played, if I think about startups that we've interacted, we also have a couple of IoT startups in our portfolio. I think the use cases tend to be very, very narrow. So for you to expand those use cases, I think the interoperability needs to be solved. And in addition, I just believe that startups are focusing on very, very customized use cases. It's not a broad use case. So for you to, and consequently, there are a lot of pilots, a lot of trials, and for you to have a product that you can, repeatedly use across different industries and different companies, that has been a limitation. That's what I've seen. I mean, Manish has many more companies in portfolio in the space. He would have.
So Manish, the question you're trying to address is, for each of the investors in you, what have you seen in IoT in the past 5 years, right? And then how AI is sitting on top of it, just a landscape view. and then we'll get into the more detailed questions once we get the landscape view from each of you, because I'm sure each of you have seen multiple different companies, so it'll be great to get that point of view. Manish, you're muted.
Sorry, what I was saying is, first of all, sorry for being late on a late panel. I just stepped out and didn't realize that the panel started.
No worries.
So I think this IoT discussion is an interesting discussion, and I'll just give you a little bit of how we look at it. And it is slightly unconventional definition you may find. So one is one set of use cases is where IoT is the end, where you instrument something and you get something out of it, and that's it, right? But in a lot of cases, we look at IoT as something which converts a physical signal into a digital signal on which an intelligence layer can be built. And that thing becomes interesting. So in our portfolio, we have tried to stay away from companies which only do IoT as an end. Somehow we feel that there is a greater value which unlocks if you can build an intelligent layer on top. So we have 3-4 companies which are doing that. Switch On, for example, is an industrial IoT. They kind of instrument your machines. But after that, most of their USP is actually in the AI layer that is sitting on top, either to create a digital twin or to do quality check. Now they have a very interesting product which actually can figure out spot welding defects without destructive testing. So all those are AI use cases built on some data which an IoT sensor is providing. I think that to us looks more interesting because it actually solves some for interoperability. Sometimes it actually expands the use cases and it is configurable. So therefore you can do many things with it. Similarly, if we look at, to my mind, Sigtuple is also an IoT company in my mind from that perspective, because it converts blood into digital blood and then you can do AI on it, right? So we'll try to look at from IoT from that perspective. And when we do that, then lots and lots of things open up, right? It's a different world out there and lots of use cases, good stuff happening. I think on your first question, if I can comment on why it is taking longer to build traction, I think that is the nature of any hardware startup. There is a little bit of customization, which is an issue, but any hardware startup which needs to install stuff in your wherever it is, then it takes some time to get going with it and then go from there.
Okay. So when we talk about the future opportunities, I think that's a good segue to have saying, have we reached a point where there's enough hardware out there so we can really expand? But coming to the next question on we all have been talking about edge AI, right? In terms of, as soon as we talk about IoT, next question that comes is, obviously you can't go to a centralized server to all the processing, what is required? And then edge AI, Anirvan, to your point, will open up two opportunities, right? One is from the chip side, how do you put the compute power out there? And the second one is also what algorithms that one needs to run on the edge and what is required both in terms of storage and compute power. So probably, Swapna, I'll start with you because you work for one of the largest chip companies in the world. So what do you see happening in the edge AI space, specifically with respect to hardware, and then we can discuss in terms of software, what do we expect to happen in the edges?
Thanks, Naganand. I think this is music to our ears the moment we hear edge AI, right? And the reason is we are manufacturing, it's sort of defining our roadmap. And also, I think one part is chipset, which is there. You have to give the surface layer on which things are operating. The other part is the network, the bandwidth which really needs to operate that. I could have the smartest chip in the world, but if I'm operating on 3G, it will be hard to do the right process and compute. So I think what we are doing is we are redefining the roadmap by saying, look, we'll have the edge AI chips, which will give you, but we'll also install the 5G network out there. We will have the right 5G chips for you to do the right computation. So I don't know if you guys noticed, yesterday Qualcomm stocks went up by 20%. The only reason was that 5G roadmap was unveiled and the kind of revenues people were talking about, which means everybody in the world is talking about adopting those chips. Everybody wants to have the smartest device out there and the fastest device. So I think it's reality. It's going to happen. And to Manish's earlier point, it will take time because there will be early adopters. Then there will be people who will come along the journey and think it's the right thing to do. And then there will be late adopters. It will be a transition. It will take 5 to 6 years, but it will happen. We are 100% confident it will happen.
Cool. And then Anirvan, you were talking about some of the fabless chips, right? So I know there are a few startups in India working on that particular issue. Can you want to just give an overview of what you're seeing and where you think the market will evolve and opportunities will evolve for startups in India?
So absolutely. So Naganan, I mean, you've been a part of the ecosystem forever, and you've also backed a lot of semiconductor. I mean, people working in that space, right? So I think what we are seeing is AI specific, accelerator chips. That's been around for a while. But we've also seen some chips that are being created for medical applications with extremely high-end power efficiency, right? What I mean by that is that ultra low power consumption, which enables you to use those chips in medical devices, something that you can. So that's been there. So the other thing that we are seeing that will be required rather is there needs to be more chip memory, right? So that your models can sit straight on the device itself. And that also we've met a couple of companies. But what happens is the semiconductor ecosystem doesn't exist in India, right? And we've never had a fab. There've been conversations about having a fab for the past 15 years. And so that entire ecosystem hasn't developed, right? So thanks to that, most of the IP tends to be with a university sitting abroad. And there are a few companies we've interacted with. One of them is an IISc, where you also have a strong role to play, where you create ASICs for ultra low power consumption for medical applications. Now, the other opportunity that could be there in India is probably software to help semiconductor companies design these. Like probably it could be on the RTL side. So that's broadly what we've seen. And on the network side, and I completely agree with Swapna, the Open RAN architecture that for 5G will be an enabler for sure. But I mean, this is a question that I had for the panel. I mean, I'm sure that I'm supposed to answer the question, but I'm just curious, do you all think optical communication, whether it's Li-Fi or other modes of communication, could play a role in the network backhaul for enabling edge AI, right? Because they're going to be micro data centers, and then there needs to be communication between the edge nodes and all of these. So I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity there? I haven't met too many companies in that domain, right? Li-Fi could play a role along with Wi-Fi in this entire, but it'll probably be the ORAN that will dominate. But would love to know everyone else's views as well on that side, the network side.
So Manish, you want to start? If you have any views on that, I can also give my views after you. So go ahead.
Sure. I think fiber optic communication has been around, but other Li-Fi communication suffer from a problem of range. So therefore, right, small things you can do. But I think you might have met this Astrom, right, which is an ISC. They are trying to solve this backhaul communication with superior antenna design and
waves, right?
Innovations they have. Sorry?
waves. What are they using?
Microwaves, yeah, they're using somehow from whatever, and I could be wrong here because technology sometimes comes up from corners we don't know. But the backhaul mobilization can happen with those technologies slightly more easier than Li-Fi in my understanding as of now.
Yeah, and also enterprise 5G, in a different frequency ranges is going to take off. Is what there are a lot of companies in the US and working on those kinds of solutions. So I think that is one area where a lot of work is happening. Cellular networks, and a few companies working in that space. And so switching on the gear, so investment areas, right? So next, now I'm going from what have you seen in the past 5 years to what you think will happen in the next 5 years. So I'll start with Manish now. Manish, what excites you in the next 5 years in this particular space, right? Because we have heard there's a lot of promise with respect to IoT, a lot of promise with respect to AI, and we all know that it's happening, but not happening at the pace that we all would like. The companies are not going at the pace we all would like. And you also mentioned when there's a hardware, there's always an issue in terms of the growth rate. But have you crossed the chasm? Thoughts on each of you on this particular question of 5 years, next 5 years, what excites you and what do you see happening?
Next 5 years, what excites me is the exits that the previous 5 years should bring. But, on a lighter note, see, I think the way, as I said, the way we look IoT, we are looking at things which actually are hard to solve without a physical device, and then you take into a digital space. It's like to us, IoT is a transformer. It transforms the physical data into digital data, and then you do whatever you want to do, right, in terms of intelligence. So when we take that broader definition, then a lot of interesting things happen. So we have seen a lot of companies in healthcare, we have seen companies in industrial, we are seeing a lot of companies in robotic automation, that different kind of companies are coming up with new kind of sensors, cameras, etc., which because robotic is coming up now even more with COVID. So I think those trends, in my opinion, will continue, because there is a lot of there are many problems to be solved in industrial. IoT is a segment where there is a fragmentation of problem statements, right? There are too many problems to be solved, and therefore, that area will continue to grow. Whether there can be scalable startups or not, that still needs to be seen. Healthcare has similar issues. There are too many physical signals, intelligence in digital. So then that gap will be bridged by different things that will come up. And robotics, there is a lot of scope. I think robotics cost optimization is going to drive some innovations in different aspects of how cameras can become multispectral, wider field of view, replacing LiDAR maybe, or some other sensor. So that sensor integration sort of a thing should also happen in our view. So I think those are some of the things that we believe should be.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mani. I think fragmentation is one of the key problems. Can someone mute, please? Who are online just now? Yeah. I think fragmentation is a key concern, and that's one of the reasons scalability becomes. And the other one is also a lot of established machinery that exists out there, and trying to interface with them is another issue. The new missions will be a lot easier to do, right? So I think those are some of the key concerns. So now to you on this next 5 years.
Can I just make one more comment on this just before we move to Tapna? Is that, see, one thing you've realized is that you cannot be making an incremental difference to whatever your playing field is. If you are making a sort of a 10x difference, speaking figuratively, then we have seen that people are willing to sort of step forward, get your sensors in, go through the pain of installation of hardware, etc., give you the data and move forward. So I think that incremental innovation in IoT is a killer. I think those companies don't move forward neither near nor there.
Okay, with you. Very, very valid statement.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with Manish, right? Whatever he's saying. But I think we slightly try to put a different lens there. So I think all of us have spoken about manufacturing as a sector has seen a lot of impact. But then we try to have a sector view on it, that which are the traditional sectors which are going to see a sea change by deep technologies, right? And deep technologies could be in the form of, when you talk about IoT, could be robotics, could be drones, could be digital devices, could be things like that, right? Smart machines, etc. But the sectors which we see will really see impact is retail, where you will see smart retail, which is people automated checkouts, things like that. The second sector which will
Amazon
see
is working very hard on that problem. Yeah.
In fact, we have invested recently in a smart checkout company, so we'll see how that goes. The second is healthcare. Healthcare is going to see a sea change impact because of things, all the technologies which will come our way. And the third sector is mobility. And mobility is a very broad term, but the fact is that this is a sector which has not been disrupted by technology. And the reason why these three sectors will see the maximum impact of adoption, which is basically Manish's point, it's not incremental. When these sectors will adopt these technologies, you will see change in cost structure, you will see a change in business model. And because these are very labor intensive sectors, and labor is a big cost anywhere in the world. So you need to change those costs, and that's where automation will be a big change because of IoT. So that's our forward.
Anirban, your thoughts?
So I think manufacturing will remain for sure. I mean, that will always remain an area of focus, and there'll be incremental improvements over there. But the question is, how can you move to a platform kind of a play? Can we have a platform connecting all operators, developers, and cloud providers on the edge, right? Who are working on the edge. So that's a large opportunity. And there have been a few investments in that space, and I think that's going to explode. In addition, when we are moving to everything to the edge, there'll be micro data centers. There'll be an edge cloud that is already being built, right? The way you are monitoring the performance and the control of that cloud will be radically different from a regular. So there's an opportunity on the software side over there, and testing automation over there. We have an automation testing company called Lambda Test, but they're solving for a very different problem. But when things move to the cloud, they could be to the edge. There could be applications for that. Right, embedded software catering to these edge applications could be an interesting area as well. However, I mean, I completely agree with Swapna, where I believe the largest scope is going to be in healthcare. Largest scope is definitely going to be in healthcare, Internet of Medical Things. Can we bring edge diagnostics? Right? Can we have preemptive analysis based on implants that we have in different humans? And for that, again, power efficiency becomes extremely important for the ASICs or whatever chips you're using. So I think that would be an area within Internet of Medical Things. Along with that, I think within the healthcare value chain or pharmaceutical value chain as well, there's a lot of scope because there's an amount of wastage in the pharmaceutical value chain is enormous. There'll be industrial applications within the supply chain also over there in terms of monitoring temperature, etc. But the question is, can we create and again, it becomes fragmented use cases when we are talking about each of these. But can we create a platform as a service? If you know, we've invested in Pixel, right? So if you think about Pixel, while they'll have remote sensing data for agricultural applications and oil and gas applications, there multiple other data sources could also be pumped into that. So it's going to be a combination of multiple technologies and multiple sources of data into an ETL that will be processed. I think that's where the larger opportunity lies, platform as a service, combining multiple sources.
That is also hard, yeah. I mean, in the sense, larger companies, but like guys like Microsoft and the guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Verticalized.
Yeah. So I think last question will go down once again with everybody is, look, when I look at IoT, it's great, but when it comes to time to pull the plug or investment, there's still a lot of uncertainty to various issues that we just discussed, right? In terms of fragmentation, in terms of multiple signals to Manish's point, and so on and so forth. So as an investor, so hence, what are some of the key challenges you yourself face when you look at these kinds of companies? What hard questions you have to ask yourself in investing these kinds of companies? Probably Swapna, you can start.
So I think for us, it's slightly easier because early stage investors do a good job of sort of looking through the pile and sort of investing in the right pool which comes to us. But I think one of the things which I've seen is a longer term horizon. I think this is an industry which needs a lot of patient capital. So typically what happens for us is we monitor those companies for 4 to 5 years where we see them come to the tipping point. And when I say tipping point, I think first 1 or 2 years is about services, where you're doing services to sort of find a product market fit. Is this a need I'm solving? Is this an aspirin or is this a vitamin? And once that happens, then they start really building that product, right? And when that product adoption happens, they need to get those 4 or 5 customers in the bag. Now the challenge is this is new to everyone. People understand now SaaS, people understand CRM, but people still don't understand the power of having data on your hand. And that is an education process. So we are seeing that happen, but that's the biggest challenge. I see that most companies try to do too many things across too many sectors just to validate that, versus having a very, very vertical focus where they just go deep in and then get 5 customers in the bag and we know it's working.
So you are good because you can wait, but what happens to guys like me, Manish, and where we can't wait? So Manish,
you tell us how you solve for it.
So
pray daily, twice a day.
And meditate, right?
To answer your, I think, see, there are 2-3 significant challenges which I was just reflecting on where we did not make an investment, right? Obviously, that's where we could not surmount the challenge, and where we made the investment, where we were able to do it. So I think 2 or 3 things which typically fail in and not making a investment is, one is working capital requirements in early stage of an IoT startup. Sometimes that becomes actually non-trivial. You can't fund it from equity, you can't fund it from debt, you can't fund it from customer money because they won't give you the advance, right? So it becomes sort of a unnecessary bleed on the company, and they sometimes struggle to handle that. Mm-hmm. The second thing is just the progress. It does not happen at the rate a digital only startup can grow. And therefore what happens is that so you have first have your working capital dent. On the second, your runway needs to be longer because the next round of financing is likely to take place only when you hit product market fit with solidity.
Okay.
So they don't sometimes work in because one is bleeding you and one is asking you to extend. So they sometimes sort of create a not a good scenario for companies.
And we don't get e-commerce type funding. So
yeah, so the funding, yeah, so that is true. So these have been the challenges. Where we have been able to cross the hump on these is essentially if we believe that somebody has solved a real problem in a 10x differentiated way, which is scalable, then we have sort of crossed the hump on it and moved forward. But the growth of those companies still haven't, they are growing at their own natural rate that they have to grow. But the capital management part of it is something that we are very cautious about having a greater runway over there.
Okay. I think we are running out of time. So Anirban, I'll just let you give one quick input if you have additional input towards.
So two inputs. I'll just give two quick inputs. I think follow-on investments. Like we've been looking at industrial AMRs for a while now, but the biggest problem is where will the follow-on investment come from? We can invest in deep tech as much as we want, but someone needs to support those startups going forward. So the follow-on investment becomes a big issue in my head. But also, I think it's the nature of startups that are being created. Everyone's targeting very fragmented use cases, as Manish, Swapna, and even you pointed out. So the use case, the market becomes, the size of the market becomes a large issue. Because if you're targeting fragmented use cases, your larger investors, I mean, what you invest in is a function of the size of the fund, what your return is going to be. So if you're not giving them a multi-billion-dollar exit, they'll be like, this is not going to work out for us. So you're targeting fragmented use cases. Also, technology that you're targeting is already being evolved in the developed world, and you're trying to do that 2-3 years later. Like AMRs has been around for years, right? Like close to 5-6 years in the US in warehouses. And if you look at the AMR startups in India, they're coming up in the past 2-3 years. I think Motors, whoever you want to talk about. So I think that's also an issue. The time it's taking us to adopt these advanced technologies from different countries in India, and also the use cases and the follow-on investment. But they're all interconnected in my head.
Cool. Manish, Swapna, and Anirban, thanks a lot for all the inputs. And to summarize, we are all saying that we are very excited, but capital is an issue, and we know there will be startups coming along the way, and we will look forward to how we can scale more companies in this space. So with that, Navratan, please take over, and thanks everybody, and thanks for all the audience for being patient, and hopefully you got something out of the session in terms of what investors look for and their key concerns in investing IoT startups, and specifically with the AI in the edge and as a use case. So Navratan, on to you now.
Thank you, Nagarnath.
Thank you.
And thank you to each of your panelists to share such very good views. We also thank all our speakers, the audience, my team, and the massive mention. We've kept you guys away from your lunch today. But I can't wait to have a khichdi today, feeling so hungry. To have a khichdi if you have not had it for a long period of time. And thank you once again, and wishing you all a wonderful day. The main expo is still open till the end of the day. You can go visit that for the various virtual booths and networking.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.